Welcome in, everybody, to a Vendetta Sports Media Daily Show special. It is the MLB Trade Deadline. We have about 2 hours until all trades will have to be completed. Sure, some stuff might be wrapping up around that time, but we are here for all of the exciting news. I'm Jerry Walker. Alongside me is Julian Casciano. Julian, before we hop into this news, how you doing today? Because it's been eventful.
Yeah, to say it's been eventful is an understatement for sure. We've had a lot of news break within the last hour, and I'm a Mets fan over here, and it's pretty crazy to see where we've gone and where we're at now. Justin Verlander has been traded. That is the biggest news of the hour. Up to this point, Verlander is heading back to the Houston Astros, where he was just won a World Series last season. Astros owner Jim Crane pushed really hard to go out and get Verlander, and we'll talk about a little bit more about the package that the Mets ended up getting for Verlander, as well as a couple more things that the Mets got. We have a full show today, and we're going to be leading up all the way towards that deadline at 6 p.m. Eastern time.
Absolutely. And I mean, as of now, it's the two of us. We will have other people from our Vendetta Sports Media MLB coverage team popping in and out as they are able to. Because obviously, a lot of people still have to be writing. There's a lot of news coming out. So make sure, first and foremost, you stay in touch with the Vendetta Sports Twitter page and the website, because there's going to be live updates coming there for all the signings and trades that are happening at this moment over the next couple hours. But like you said, big one recently in this last hour is Justin Verlander going back to Houston. There was a lot of question about what the Mets are going to do with Verlander, with Scherzer. Saw Scherzer get traded to the Rangers a couple of days ago. Are you surprised that they ended up trading both of them, or are you more surprised that it took so long to trade both of them?
Yeah, I am surprised that they ended up trading both of them because, this team is not actually that far away, contrary to popular belief, from being a team that was in contention this year. They were way behind the Atlanta Braves for the division lead, and that was something that haunted them all year long. And it was really the Mets have been playing decent baseball for the last month. They were 14-9 in the month of July. If you include June, they were 7-19 in June, and they were 14-9 in July. So obviously that June really just tanked their entire season, and that's it. This is a team that had a mid to low farm system coming into this trade deadline, and they had a bunch. They are the oldest team in the sport, bar none. It was by average age rank. They are the oldest team in the sport. So there was no path for the Mets to succeed over this next couple of years without having a deadline like this. I did not think for the last week or 2 weeks that this would happen with either Scherzer or Verlander. I thought maybe one of them would go, or maybe a guy like Mark Canha, who we saw get traded to the Milwaukee Brewers, would go. Maybe a Tommy Pham would go, get the most out of the prospects. But, this is Billy Epler said that this is not a full fire sale, but to me, this is a full fire sale. You trade off Verlander, you trade off Scherzer, Canha is gone. It looks like Tommy Pham is gone, and you're getting rid of your top older guys, and you're bringing in a lot of prospects. With that being said, I really like the return that they got today for Justin Verlander.
Oh yeah,
Drew Gilbert, number one prospect in the Houston Astros system. That's a good return right there. I mean, the guy has been raking in Double-A. In Single-A, just got called up to Double-A. I think last week, number one prospect in their system. And then they also got Ryan Clifford, who's another outfielder, and their number 4 prospect. And some Astros writers were even calling him their number 2 prospect. So for a 40-year-old pitcher who's being paid a lot of money, it's certainly a good haul to get back Gilbert and Clifford. Although I think Mets fans wanted a little bit more, maybe an MLB player, a Chas McCormick, or somebody that is expendable for Houston. But with the price tag right now, it's not a bad return. And if you also look at this and you look at Luis Angel Acuna coming over from the Texas trade with Max Scherzer, of course, Ronald Acuna Jr.'s brother, Luis Angel, it's a good return. And from where you are right now, you can't be too upset about it.
No, not at all. And I mean, you mentioned it there, that contract and the amount of money that was wrapped up in both Scherzer and Verlander. It's very nice to get that off your pay bill for the moment, at least, as obviously they are getting into the back end of their careers. 40-year-old for Verlander. Scherzer, I want to say, is 38 or 39. So both of them are up there. Bring in some young guys. Like you said, it might have been nice to get someone who you could throw into that current Mets team, because as the Mets are only 6 games back of that last wild card spot in the AL, still very much of a chance to make the playoffs. What this is kind of looking a little bit more like they're building for that future for next season. Maybe make some big signings in this offseason. Obviously, there's one big guy who we all know about. Shohei Ohtani is going to be a free agent likely this offseason now that the Angels have said that they weren't going to trade him last week. So maybe it's saving up some money, try and go out and get a big splash free agent signing. But I do agree with you that the haul they got back for Verlander could have been a little better, but getting 2 top 4 prospects from any team is great piece of business and great haul in return.
Yes, and that's a really good point that you make there about spending enough money and saving that money for this offseason, because you get rid of Verlander and you pay a little bit off for Verlander, but for Scherzer, you pay off for Scherzer a little bit, and you have money saved up for next season, for this offseason. And now Bob Nightingale is reporting that the Mets are sending $54 million to Houston on the remaining of Verlander's $93 million contract. So they pay about half of Verlander's contract, which, again, not bad, really not bad at all for what this trade ended up being for the Mets. If you're able to pay off half his salary and then get basically Houston's top 2 prospects, according to some people, you'll take that. And what the Mets have been doing is getting these prospects and essentially buying the prospects, sending money towards these teams to buy out their current players' contracts and to get these prospects back in return. So it's not a bad move for the Mets for sure. I think at this point, we could talk about the Mets all day.
Yeah, I did want to just kind of bring up one other thing around them. Is I just looking at what free agents are around for next season. It could be very nice because there are some very big names and some older guys that you could just maybe sign on lower level contracts in terms of money wise. So be interesting to see what the Mets do after this season if they are missing out on the playoffs now that they have opened up at least a little bit more of that payroll space.
And one final point I do want to make is that fans are frustrated that the Mets aren't getting many pitching prospects back in return for these pitchers. But the thing is about MLB pitching is that can be very much acquired through free agency. And if you take a look at this upcoming free agent class, you have Shohei Ohtani and you have Marcus Stroman and Blake Snell, Julio Urias. These guys are all going to be free agents at the end of this year. So with that being said, the Mets have been better in these last couple of years at developing bats to come up to the major leagues. If you look at a guy like Jeff McNeil, Pete Alonso, these guys, Brandon Nimmo, these guys that were homegrown talents, they're really all bats at the end of the day. So to go out and get these bats has been good for New York. Not to mention they also got Marco Vargas and Ronald Hernandez from the Miami Marlins when they traded off David Robertson just a few days ago, which feels like a couple of weeks ago at this point with all the trades that we've had. So we're going to shift here. I think I'm ready to shift over. I just wanted to mention before we really break into some more news and maybe some rumors, I wanted to talk about the New York Yankees a little bit. The Yankees have been nowhere. Where are the Yankees? They're completely silent here for this entire day and this entire week. I don't believe they've made a single trade. Considering where they are in this season, they're a couple games back of the wild card. They're in last place in the American League East. right now, if you're Brian Cashman in the Yankees, what's your plan? What are you doing? And are you buyers?
Yeah, that's $1 million question because like it could very well be like you said they're just outside that wild card spot in the AL. Could be that position where maybe we want to make a push this year, rest of the season, get some guys in. The Yankees always have the ability to do that, but on the same other hand, it's maybe think they aren't going to catch anyone else in that wild card spot because that wild card race is very tight. There's a lot of teams involved in it. Maybe it is that kind of selling thing, but I was expecting coming into these last couple of days that they'd at least be doing something one way or another. But it really looks like they've just been sitting on the sideline, kind of twiddling their thumbs, waiting for something to happen involving them, but nothing has.
Yeah, and I have to call them my team that's been the most quiet so far this deadline. If you look at the holes on their roster, they have glaring holes on their roster as far as bats are concerned. They don't have the hitting right now to get past these American League pitchers. And they showed that in the Baltimore series. They showed that in the Angels series a couple weeks back. So for the Yankees, I think that you got to go out and you got to go find somebody right now to, if you're going to buy and if you're going to be the Yankees this year and push for a wild card spot and maybe even push for the American League East, although it seems kind of like an afterthought at this point, you have to go get a Tommy Pham or a Tyler O'Neill, an outfielder, maybe even a guy like Jock Peterson, right? You would do pretty well profiling in that stadium. So you got to go out and get a guy that's going to bring you some power in that lineup and give you something else to fear besides, Aaron Judge and even Giancarlo Stanton or Harrison Bader. Because outside of those three guys, where's the production coming from? Gleyber Torres, his name has been floated around in trade rumors this week. So you can't just rely on those guys if you want to have a successful season and a successful roster here.
Absolutely. I mean, looking around at the other teams in that AL East, really it's the Yankees, the Red Sox to an extent as well, haven't been making moves, but the Rays, the Blue Jays, and the Orioles have all kind of made moves one way or another. Orioles was more them sending something to Seattle, getting a minor league player in return. But, I mean, these other teams around them are making moves. We saw the Angels went out and tried to trade for a few pieces recently. I know they got Randall Grichuk, CJ Cron from the Rockies. Grichuk's already got a home run for the Angels, and they're now jumped the Yankees in that wild card spot or in that wild card race. So it's the Yankees are kind of letting everyone else take advantage of what's available and just sitting around waiting to do something. And I'm sure Yankees fans are not overly pleased with the way things are going at this deadline at the moment.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Angels, and I'd love to talk about them for a second.
Yeah.
The deals that they have done so far have been really nice. I've liked their deadline move so far. You go get CJ Cron and Randall Grichuk, like you just mentioned. Taylor Ward goes down, he gets a brutal injury. He gets hit in the face and suffers some facial bone fractures for them. And, he's probably not going to be in the lineup for the rest of the season. The Angels the next day, they go out and they get Randall Grichuk. And with that package, they also got CJ Cron. Yeah. I believe they're about to move on from Jared Walsh. So, CJ Cron, he supplants that first base hole there for the Angels. And, they also made the bigger move last week to go get Lucas Giolito and Reynaldo Lopez from the White Sox. So the Angels, they're filling holes. They made it clear that we have Ohtani for this maybe 2 more months, right? If you're Artie Moreno and you're the guys that are running the ship in Los Angeles with the Angels, you have a limited amount of time with Shohei Ohtani in your mind right now. You're assuming that he's going to be gone. So you go out and you get really high quality players here. And you also have got team control. You got team control with Cron and a little bit of more time with Giolito here. So good moves made by the Angels. I was happy to see that they're going out and buying instead of trading away a guy like Ohtani.
Welcome in,
Matt joining the show.
Yeah. Talking on the Angels right now and all the moves that they've been doing as of late. kind of around that CJ Cron, Randall Gritchick, the Giolito trade, and kind of just how they've been doing. So if you have thoughts on that, feel free to chime in. Julian, I think you were still having a point to make right there. So
yeah, just to finish my point, I'm liking what the Angels are doing at this deadline. And, when you build, if you have a team that's going to go out and compete for the rest of this season, you want to have that so that Ohtani is he's even more inclined to stay put for the end of the season.
Absolutely. I mean, if you have Ohtani, you have to be at least putting some sort of effort in to try and make the playoffs in this final year. We all, I would assume, think that he's going to be heading elsewhere in the offseason, unless the Angels really throw a boatload of money at him or really do something amazing the rest of this season. So might as well take advantage of him while they can.
Absolutely. And just to catch up on a few trades here while we have a second, 2 trades that are just coming in now since we've hopped on the show is that the Phillies have acquired Michael Lorenzen from the Detroit Tigers, which is going to go ahead and complete their rotation. I really like that move for the Phillies. That 1 through 5 is starting to look dangerous now for Philadelphia. And the other move is a bit of a perplexing one that is just kind of getting in here. John Heyman, I think, grabbed this one first. It's the Milwaukee Brewers are getting Andrew Chafin from the Arizona Diamondbacks. Kind of a perplexing move considering that the Diamondbacks are obviously right in the thick of things, and they just traded a left-handed reliever who's been reliable for them, has been in games at the end of he's been in games at the end of games, right? He's been that back end bullpen guy. So he's headed to Milwaukee, who could potentially be an NL wildcard rival. So definitely kind of a perplexing move there from the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I mean, my thinking is because they are tied. They're currently tied with the Miami Marlins as well for that last wild card spot. This is something that you always want to have, that sneaky good left-handed reliever out of the bullpen just to throw out when you need to. And Chafin's had good moments for the Diamondbacks. Last couple of years, the whole Diamondbacks team hasn't been great, so he struggled a little bit from that. But when you are fighting for a playoff spot, and I thought the Diamondbacks were going to go in and kind of be buyers at this deadline, but now it's looking like they're moving a little bit around. I don't know what the return is that they're getting for that Chafin deal yet. I don't know if you've seen anything, Julian, or you, Matt. So haven't seen much on that. But
no, this one's just kind of breaking now. So I think once we get a little bit of what we hear on the return, then we'll update everybody with that.
Yeah, but as far as that, Phillies getting Michael Lorenzen, Tigers in return get the Phillies number 5 prospect, Hao-Yu Lee, who's been playing decently in high A. He's hitting 283 at the moment there. So going to be just another prospect for a Tigers team that's relatively young and really doesn't have much going for him this year. Try and get those prospects in.
Yeah, that's a good move for both sides, honestly. Here, I like the return that Philadelphia is getting. Talk about that rotation: Aaron Nola, Taijuan Walker. Now you throw in Lorenzen into the mix, and it starts to look even more dangerous with a guy like Ranger Suarez in there. And the Phillies have a really good baseball team. So as long as they showed it last year, as long as they can get into the dance, they can be a threat to go win the National League.
Absolutely. And Matt, I want to get your opinion on this because we talked a little bit about your team, the New York Yankees, and how
we don't need to talk about that.
Sitting on that. But are you don't want to talk about that? I was going to say, are you surprised that they're not?
No, I'm just kidding.
Are you surprised that they're not even doing anything at the moment, or is there anything you've seen from Yankees Twitter side of things?
I'm not surprised.
Not surprised. Okay.
I mean, it's like I talked about this with Bagdonas a couple of weeks ago. It's like when they're in this purgatorial state right now where it's like they probably should be selling off pieces, but at the same time, like no matter how much money they eat from like trading expirings like Bader, like Severino, like you're not going to get much back.
Yeah.
But then they're not in a state right now. They're 3.5 games back out of the final wild card spot, 10 back at the division. We know they're not going to win the division. So right now it's just, are they going to make the wild card spot or not? And it's looking bleaker by the day, obviously, just the way they've been hitting. But like the one name that's been floated around today is Dylan Carlson. But like, what's Dylan Carlson going to do?
How do you not? My question is, you're sitting at 3.5 games back. You're obviously your problem is your offense, and you could go get a guy like Tommy Pham or Dylan Carlson, and you could be buyers here, and you could try and compete down the stretch here. Is that not something that
there's no one move that's going to fix this team? There's no one move. It would have to be something substantial to fix this team, because it's like Dylan Carlson isn't going to provide protection for Judge. No one right now is providing protection to Judge. They're relying on the experience and the track record of Stanton, Rizzo, LeMahieu, and it's all bit them in the ass this season. And it has really, for the most part, the last couple of seasons. And it's like, sure, Dylan Carlson will help the outfield. Like they haven't had a left fielder for all but 1 month over the last 2 years, 3 years. And that was Benintendi before he got hurt last year. And right now they're running IKF out there and expecting they're trying to provide stopgaps, but they really do need like a lefty somewhere, but just a lefty outfielder. And yeah, Carlson's a switch hitting, but he's a below average hitter. He hardly has any experience playing left field. He's mostly played center and right throughout his career. And like, again, it feels like it would be almost another stopgap, even though he does have a few more years left to control. But at the same time, it's just like everyone's going to pitch around Judge for the rest of the season because of the production that they're getting elsewhere. And so at what point, I mean, if I were them, I would probably just start selling off like pieces, see what you can get, and try to play the young guys, try to play Peraza, try to play. Obviously they've had Volpe up the entire year, but like, let's see what you got in them before start building for 2024 and 2025. Because it's like this team right now is currently constructed, it's going nowhere, and it's probably going to continue going nowhere. And so it's like, why would you try to even deplete your farm system even more? I think Fangraphs has them as like the 27th ranked farm system in baseball. You're going to deplete your farm system even more to go where? To the wild card? Like, yeah, they've gone to the wild card. They've only won the division twice since like 2013 or something like that. But at the same time, it's like this team isn't going anywhere regardless. So at one point, you have to decide to start being honest with yourselves. I mean, yeah, they're the New York Yankees. They're not gonna completely punt on the season unless you have a piece like Aroldis Chapman in 2016 or an Andrew Miller in 2016. Like, those guys were legit assets and they got top prospects for them. You're trading Luis Severino. You're probably not going to get a whole lot back. You're going to trade Harrison Bader. You're probably not going to get a whole lot back, but I guess it's better than nothing than letting them walk. You know, like, it's just at this point, like, I don't expect them to do much. I just think it's more of like they might try to sell off one or two pieces. They might try to bring a Dylan Carlson in and then try to say, "Oh, we tried something." When it's just like, did you really try? Did you really try anything? Like, this team isn't going anywhere. This team isn't going anywhere regardless. So it's like, even if they do make the
money, so why not sell? If the team isn't going anywhere and we're driving ourselves into the ground here as far as we've got nobody and we're not hitting anything. The Marlins were on the phone all week about Gleyber Torres. Do you give them a call back and potentially go and try and trade him off? They should take sort of the Mets route of, hey, this season we don't have the roster construction to go win a World Series. And if we're not going to go win a World Series, then let's build up our farm system. Let's get our farm system from 27th to 15th, or, just build it up even more than it is now.
They should, but they're probably not going to, because it's like, again, at least in terms of like rentals. I mean, yeah, Gleyber has one more year left to control. Someone like Clay Holmes has one more year left to control. Like, you could get legit something for those two, but I don't think they want to trade a guy like Gleyber Torres, because it's like, remember, I think the reported return of that was something they wanted was something ridiculous from the Marlins. I can't remember exactly what it was, but someone reported that. I'm trying to remember like what the exact offer was. I think it was something like Braxton Garrett or something like that. It was something where it was just an unrealistic return for Gleyber Torres, even when he's having like an average season. but average season on this team is looking like one of the best players on the team. Like, that's just the fact of the reality of the situation. But then again, like it's really, I think they're going to at least, I don't think they're going to try to trade a guy like Glaber, or at least, I mean, yeah, they've been probably trying to trade him for the last couple of years, but I don't think they're actually going to trade him. I think it's more of like, they're going to try to trade, I don't know, IKF, Bader, whoever, like player X who's on a rental contract, and see if they just get like a couple mid to lower level prospects in return. And then again, maybe use a prospect or two in their farm system to go get someone who will help mitigate the damage. Because it's like, again, you look at the standings and they're 3.5 out. Well, history dictates, unless if it's 2016, they're going to, regardless of how far they back are in the wild card, which usually hasn't been very much, it's usually been around, if anything, 3.5 games, then they're probably going to at least buy. And so they're not going to, I don't think they're going to punt on the season. I think they're going to, again, continue to look at the track record of some of these guys who aren't playing well and being like, you know what, they're going to positively regress, when I think all three of us know that they're probably not going to positively regress, or at least in Rizzo's instance, some positive regression, because he's been the worst hitter in baseball for 2 months. So,
yeah, it's a bad position for the Yankees right now.
They're in a terrible position there. Again, it's purgatory.
It's not a World Series winning team. So at that point, because I mean, sure, you make the playoffs, big whoop. If you're not winning it, especially as a Yankees team that hasn't won it since 2009, the season's a disappointment in the first place, and there's no real reason to be going and buying out these guys if it's not going to help you reach that end goal of the MLB season. So, I mean, I'm with you, Matt. It's got to be frustrating, and it's got to be kind of crazy.
It's so annoying.
You just have to – I think we're all on board that you should be selling some guys, but it's just the fact that there aren't guys really worth selling. Yankees are
you're selling pieces that are you're selling mid. You're not selling high. You're selling mid to low on some of these guys.
Yeah.
Like if they were to trade Luis Severino, who's making like $15 million, like they're gonna have to eat money. But even if you eat money for Luis Severino, you're not gonna get anything back. Like it's just
you might get like a team.
It's not a realistic. But then again, they also did trade Jordan Montgomery for Harrison Bader, who was literally injured for like 2 months when they traded for him.
What a trade.
Who am I to say that they can't get anything back for a couple of these guys? But I just think it's going to be mostly like it's going to be like a couple minor moves, and it's going to piss the fan base off, and people are going to get like, I don't think there's an outcome where Yankee fans are going to be happy in the end. I just don't think there's, because it's like, even if they do go out and get someone like, I don't know, like a higher level guy, then the fans are going to be like, wait, you're going to deplete the farms. Like this guy isn't going to help. But if you sell off these pieces and get nothing back, it's going to be the same type of reaction. But I think at this point, I think the fan base just wants them to sell. Like if I'm being truthfully honest, I mean, you guys live, or I think both of you guys live on like the East Coast and are tapped in at least to an extent. But I'm sure New Yorkers aren't very happy.
No, I can't imagine. So I'm in another fantasy baseball league with a bunch of friends who are from New York, New Jersey, all kind of Yankees or Mets fans, and the Yankees fans are pissed at the moment. So it's fun.
At the same time, it's like they've been pissed for several years at Cashman and at Howe, and it's just this is like the worst it's ever been, and it's only going to continue to get worse if they just keep. I don't want to say lying to themselves, but like these guys aren't good right now. I don't think they're being completely honest with themselves.
I do want to mention like another team that I think is kind of hasn't done a ton, but now it looks like they're trying to buy, is the San Diego Padres. Went out and traded for Rich Hill and Ji-Man Choi. I don't see the point of that. They're not.
Why?
Exactly my question.
Why?
They lost to the Rockies last night. They've lost 4 straight. What was it you were saying, Julian, earlier? They've lost their 0-10 in extra innings this year. This is not a good team. I think they should be selling personally. Blake Snell potentially. Juan Soto is still probably the best outfielder potentially on the trade block in the trade market at the moment. So they could get some good stuff in return, because it's the typical San Diego Padres. Every 4 or 5 years, and I know I've said it before on this show, they'll go out, get a bunch of big-name players, throw them all together, and it'll fail miserably. And we're seeing that again this year.
It's hard to rationalize the Padres, not going out. and selling off some pieces. Although the Padres are probably the hardest case to crack here in the entire deadline, because you have a team has this high of payroll, and they made a move today that's like, you're gonna go get Rich Hill and G-Man Choi. Okay, are you buyers or are you sellers? You know that move, that tells me nothing, right? G-Man Choi and Rich Hill, they're okay pieces, but that is not a needle. That does not move the needle if you're the San Diego Padres. You're 0-10 in extra inning games this season. You're 6-18 in one-run games this season. If you're gonna go make a move, go get relievers. Go get people that'll help you at the end of games. Your team is the worst in the league with runners in scoring position as when you're up at bat. So what are you doing? You're not moving the needle much by making a move like this. So if you're the Padres, I'd love to see you go get another guy that can help you with that bullpen. Maybe another starter. You have, half a season of maybe Cy Young Blake Snell. You have Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis, Manny Machado, and Xander Bogaerts on your team right now. So why don't you go out and actually buy again? No, I can't stand when these teams just go half-ass. I'm sorry to say it, but half-ass. We saw it with the Mets last year. They went half-ass in last year's deadline. They ended up losing in the playoffs because of it, and they ended up tanking this season because they didn't go out and they didn't go spend prospect capital. If we're spending this much money in the offseason to bring in these players, and we're right here, if you're the Padres, you're right on the precipice of being right in this thing. You're probably not going to go win the NL West. That's probably out of the picture now. You're 5 games back of the wild card, and ahead of you are the Cubs, the Brewers, Marlins, and Diamondbacks, and a couple other teams. So if you're telling me that you can't go out and take some games and go ahead in these standings, go out and get some guy that will move the needle. Call the Mets and see what you'll get for Brooks Raley, right? A reliever like Brooks Raley, somebody high level, David Bednar, somebody like that. Go get somebody that will move the needle. Rich Hill and G-Man Choi do not move the needle.
No,
see, I feel like they should do the exact opposite. But I do like, they are 5 games back, and the teams ahead of them aren't there. But like, this is an opportunity. I mean, it's kind of a weird thing when you're trading. If they decide to trade like Blake Snell, he has been he's done his best work with a personal catcher.
Yeah.
So what if you're another team thinking about trading for him? Then you're like, wait, should we trade for Gary as well? Like, what's exactly the plan there? And so, but they also have the Juan Soto debacle to figure out. And it's like, Juan Soto's, he's still having a fine season. Obviously, it's below average to his standards, but he's still having a fine season, and at least he's been better over these last, I want to say, like, month or two. But they are in a position to where it's like you can sell high on a couple pieces. I mean, not Soto necessarily, for example, but like you could sell high on a Snell, on a Hader, if you want to, and see what you can get back while also maintain. Like, you might be able to get a major league level or like a young like infielder, like a young outfielder, like someone who can help you at the major league level right away, instead of having to worry about like, all right, what are we going to do in the offseason after we gave Bogaerts, Machado, Tatis, Cronenworth, like all of this money. Like, you have at least you get some sort of flexibility to see like, okay, we traded for Josh Hader it was the last deadline, right? We gave up a bunch for him, but then like you could see what you want to get back for him. You could see what you can get back for Blake Snell, whose trade value may never be higher, or at least at this stage of his career. And so at least it's something worth considering. But like, again, as Julian mentioned, they are 5 games back. They are in a position to buy if they want to, because the teams ahead of them, like, no disrespect to the Cubs, but I don't think they're going to play blazing hot baseball forever, even though they are still somewhat buying, it looks like. Like, I don't think, like, the Diamondbacks I'm higher on, but like are the Giants going to stay in the wild card race? Like, I mean, yeah, I think they're like a half game or 1 game up, whatever the case is. But like, who's going to level it out? Because there's like 5 or 6 teams competing for 3 spots, and the Padres are one of those teams.
And a lot of these teams right now are buyers, right? You have the Cubs, who look like they're buying. Milwaukee is, from the trades that they've made, they're in it. So you got the Mets are obviously selling. You've seen the Reds go out and make some moves, although one of those teams, the Reds or Brewers, will win the NL Central. And the Phillies are obviously buying. They're getting ready to go try and compete again. So it is a precarious position from that circumstance as far as what the Padres should do. But you take a broader look at this NL wild card, and I want to focus in a little bit on Arizona, because now rumors are going around that they might be looking to trade even more away, even though they went and got Paul Sewald last night. And you trade away Chafin, a guy like Chafin, to the Brewers, and so what is happening with the Diamondbacks? Are they buying or are they selling?
It might be a buy-sell bolt, like they're doing both.
Yeah, it's kind of trying to replace some of the old with the new. And I mean, yesterday they also went out and traded for Jace Peterson from the A's. I don't know how much that really helps them.
Inconsequential.
So yeah, but I mean, it's like exactly the kind of thing. They're not necessarily buying pieces that'll propel them much further up, and they're not trading away anything that's going to really harm them that I've seen so far, at least. So it's one of those. They're in a weird situation because I don't know, it just is. They're making moves, but it's nothing overly substantial or super noteworthy. At least in my opinion, it isn't.
I'm watching MLB Network, and they have something up on the D-backs right now, and they showed a graphic of Luis Severino. I'm intrigued. I'm just kidding.
Oh, Severino to the D-back.
No, I'm just saying they showed a graphic up there. I don't think there's been any reputable rumors about Luis Severino to the D-backs, but it's interesting. Have you guys talked about
speaking of starting pitching?
What they've done?
The who?
Speaking of starting pitching, I did want to talk about the Dodgers for a minute, because the Dodgers have been awfully quiet since they went out and they got Lance Lynn and they got Joe Kelly. So those were two pretty good moves. We'll see how those pan out. Lance Lynn obviously hasn't been the same pitcher this season. And Joe Kelly the other day with that trade, that's a good bullpen piece for now. But do you guys think that they'll go and get another starter? I would imagine that they have to go get another starter, either Jack Flaherty and Eduardo Rodriguez or somebody around that ballpark.
I think, what about Mitch Keller? If they could get the guts to do it, go out and get Dylan Cease. They have the prospects to do it.
That's true.
At least I think they do. I mean, if you don't want to go there and it's going to be a super high price, then why don't you go get Mitch Keller? He might be the best of all of those, or at least not. He's not better than Cease, but he's at least in the ballpark at the other names that you mentioned. I think he's better than Flaherty.
Yeah, and you could argue that Keller is having a better season than any of these pitchers.
Right.
You can argue that he's having a better pitcher than season than Cease, than Rodriguez, than Flaherty. So yeah, that's obviously a name to watch. But a guy like Mitch Keller, I think that the Pirates are not that extremely far away from contending. So I think that they are wanting to hold on to a guy like Keller. So if you don't want to pay a king's ransom for a guy like Keller, you have to be pushing hard for Eduardo Rodriguez right now, as well as Jack Flaherty. I think you have to get another starter, and then also maybe call the Mets and see what's going on with Tommy Pham. Go get a power hitting outfielder. So I think if you're the Dodgers, you should add another outfielder and another starter.
Yeah, I agree. I would say but from what I've seen this year, it's also not just been the starters that have been an issue. Their bullpen has been inconsistent as well. So I was wondering if you guys think there's any relievers that maybe they should go out and get, because I just haven't seen a great Dodgers bullpen this year.
They've just been hammered with injuries.
Yeah. Okay.
At least in their just pitching staff in general.
Was that for the bullpen then? All right.
Yeah. But I don't disagree. I do think they do probably need to get a couple of arms, at least in the bullpen, like 1 to 2 maybe. But no, you're right. Speaking of bullpens, we didn't even talk about that with the Diamondbacks. Yeah. I mean, like we talked about like the moves that they've made already with trading away Chafin and acquiring Sewald, but we want to talk about a bullpen that's been a complete disaster this season. How many games has their bullpen lost them? at least over the last like month or two. Like their bullpen is awful, and so it's like maybe they're a team that can go get a couple of bullpen arms outside of the one that they already got with Paul Sewald. But
which even makes less sense on why you go trade Chafin. I mean, I guess Chafin hasn't really been the guy for you. He hasn't been that good. He's given up a couple of. He has a high ERA and he's given up a couple of losses for you. But why trade him if you're looking for depth and you're looking to improve that bullpen? Then I don't know. Doesn't make sense.
Especially when they lack, at least to my knowledge, they lack left-handed arms in the pen. Like I don't think I'm trying to think of other ones. Like Tommy Henry comes to mind, but that's about it. I think, right?
And they've used Henry in a starting role as well. So he's not your guy that's going to go maybe strike out Bryce Harper in a wild card series or somebody like that. He's not. That guy would have been Andrew Chafin at the beginning of this season.
Go get Josh Hader. No.
Why not though?
I mean, probably because the price is going to be so ridiculously high again, especially when you're trading in division. Yeah. Like when you guys were talking about the Dodgers, I was like, what if they went out and got like a Blake Snell?
It's actually not outside the realm of possibility for them.
It's not, but I think the price, I think it's the in-division price. I think the price would be a lot higher for a team in division, especially division rival, than it would be a team like if you're like the Orioles.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Like I think a team like the Dodgers, if you're trying to trade in division, I just think there's a tax to that some teams may hold to their heart more than others, but it's not impossible. I think the Dodgers have the prospects to do it, but it's just a question of if they want to do it.
Yeah, it's more on the both, I guess, end as well as do they want to start selling these players, and especially to a team that they're trying to make their rivals so much in the Dodgers that it just doesn't seem like that's something they'd be willing to do to give
talk about pissing off a fan base.
Yeah.
Trading Blake Snell to the Dodgers, that would start riots.
Okay, so here's a question I have for both of you guys. It looks like just the two teams that jump out in mind, teams who are, I mean, as we know, who are probably a little bit ahead of schedule this year are the Orioles and the Reds. Mostly just the Reds, but like the Orioles, I don't think anyone expected them to be 65-41 at this point in the season and lead the division and have one of the best records in baseball. So like, do you guys think that like if you were the GM of their team right now, like would you guys like push the chips all the way in? Would you be a little bit more like cautionary with the moves that you make because you don't want to like speed up the process too much? Like what would you guys do if you were the GM of either of those two teams right now?
I would say, if you don't mind me going, Julian, I'd say
go for it.
The Orioles, because it's been it's like a process. They've built all these guys up. It's a lot of guys that they've drafted or traded for when they were minor leaguers. So it's not like they've gone out and really bought a ton of players. Reds, I think, could be said the same, but I know a little bit more about the Orioles in terms of the players they've brought in. It's just I wouldn't rush anything with them. Probably could be said the same with the Reds. And I mean, obviously, when they brought up Ellie De La Cruz, that seemed to change the whole dynamic of that team, and they've kind of gone on a tear since he's been called up. So for the Orioles, I wouldn't rush anything. See what happens. See how the kids do this year. See what happens in the playoffs, and who knows, they might surprise you, might fatigue, and then you'll know for next year going into the off season. Because Julie and I were discussing a little bit before you came on that there are a lot of solid veteran free agents this offseason. So maybe that's something the Orioles have in the back of their mind is, we'll go out and sign a veteran guy that's maybe done it before, made deep playoff runs to come in and help out. Then come next season's trade deadline, that's when they might start making moves. I don't think the Orioles will do much this year or should do too much. There's no need to rush it. It's baseball. It's a long, slow-moving game to begin with to an extent, 162 games. So it's take your time, kind of get everything in the right place, right time, because teams we've seen teams rush it. I would say even the Padres, I know they've gone out and got a bunch of veterans, but they rushed everyone together. And just throwing stuff together last minute and hoping it clicks when we only have 2 months left in the season, I personally don't think it's worth it.
Unless I think if you're the Orioles, that you have a hole on your team right now, and it's starting pitching. You need one more pitcher if you want to go win a playoff series, right? If you want to maybe make a run at the AL East and maybe go win the American League, you have to get another pitcher, right? But if somebody's asking for Jackson Holliday, Colton Cowser, Jordan Westburg, Heston Kjerstad, or DL Hall, the answer is no. Because you can't trade those guys. Those top 5 guys are what's making your farm system the number 1 in baseball, right? So if you can hold on to those guys and go get another starting pitcher, that's where, I'm talking to maybe the Cardinals about Jack Flaherty, because you can give up some of your prospects that maybe aren't the best in the world for a guy like Flaherty and getting a guy who's been there before. To answer your question, Matt, about going all in if you're ahead of schedule, the Orioles ownership has made it clear that they're not going to shell out a lot of these prospects for rentals or even a Dylan Cease who's under team control. I just don't think it happens for the Orioles. Orioles fans are probably going to leave this deadline with a sour taste in their mouth, and that's at least what I think. And as far as the Reds as a team shouldn't get too far ahead of themselves. They have a really good team, but they have 4 rookies running the show right now. And I don't know how sustainable that is come playoff time. So I don't think you trade any prospects. I think you gear up for next season and really start to look good and get roster fillers, right? I like the Sam Moll move that they got because they needed a left-handed bullpen arm really badly. So you go out and you get that, and maybe you go get another starter, although the starter market, it looks like it's pretty hot right now with teams that are going to give up a lot of prospects. So both of those teams, I think, should sort of hang back, see what happens, and maybe go make a last-minute move.
I got a trade for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like this was reported by Craig Mish of the Miami Herald, but the Miami Marlins are acquiring Jake Berger from the Chicago White Sox.
Nice.
I like that move. That's the kind of thing I was expecting from teams in that NL wild card race. Because like we were saying, the Brewers, the Marlins, the Diamondbacks were all tied. Now I've seen the Brewers and the Marlins both go make moves. I like that Berger move to Miami. Puts the pressure back on Arizona to go out and be buyers or just completely throw it away and sell everyone. But for Miami, I think that's a good move. I don't know who's their current third baseman. What am I blanking on?
It was Gene Segura, who is currently the worst qualified hitter in MLB.
So anything was an upgrade, and Berger's a pretty decent upgrade for them and fills a hole. That's what we've been talking about quite a bit on this show today is teams needing to go out and fill the holes that they have. This is a perfect example of a team doing that and could pay off in the long run for them.
For Miami, I like this move for a couple things. One, you already got your bullpen arm and your guy for the end of games that you needed to go get in David Robertson. He's now on your team, and you gave up prospects for him, sure. So you got him. I wanted them to come into this deadline and get a bullpen arm and get at least one more bat that has power for that middle of that lineup. And that's exactly what they're going to get with Jake Berger. He's got an over an 800 OPS. He's got 25 home runs this year. And he's got a lot. He's got a lot of RBIs for a team that really did not score any runs this season. So I think Jake Berger. I'm not sure exactly how much team control he has. That'll be another thing to look at here. But I like the trade for Miami.
Matt, your
Does that
thoughts?
mean Gleyber Torres is off the table?
Ooh.
No, it doesn't. Not for me, at least.
I think there's some indication that he's probably off the table, or at least he's not.
I think that there's probably too much. The Yankees probably asked for too much, and they switched directions. And he's not necessarily off the table, but he's probably not. The likelihood is that he's not going to get traded to the Marlins.
Or that's kind of what I meant. That's kind of like,
Yeah.
does that mean he's not in their radar anymore?
And Miami gave up at least Jake Eder, who is their 4th prospect in their entire system.
Oh, okay.
So that's a good return for the White Sox right there. To go trade a guy like Berger, who Jake Berger before this season was nobody, right? He's not a guy that's like we're going to build our team around Jake Berger. If you're the White Sox, he kind of jumped onto the map and really started to tear things up in April and May. So you go out and you get the 4th ranked prospect in Miami's system. Good return.
Absolutely. And I mean, talk about a team that's selling and kind of doing it in the right way and getting some decent stuff in return. That's the White Sox. I think they've done a pretty decent job getting new guys and young prospects in for trading out some of their overall more veteran players. And the next one I'm interested to see if he does move is Dylan Cease. Because I would imagine he'd be gone today, but nothing. You can't be certain about anything in this.
I don't see, for some reason, I just think they're considering he has another team, a year of team control.
Okay.
I don't think they're moving him, but they might. I mean, it's probably gonna probably gonna cost a lot. And it's like you saw what they got for Giolito and Ronaldo. They got the Angels like 1 and like 2, like I was these like 2 and 3, like 2nd and 3rd best prospects.
Yeah.
And the Angels don't have a good farm system, but that's still something, right?
Yeah.
Unless
those guys were rentals, and so
unless the Orioles or Dodgers give them a lot,
right,
they're not going to trade Dylan Cease.
Oh.
Right. I'm trying to find the years of control for Berger.
Obviously, we talked about this a little bit earlier in the show, but I did want to get back to the team that I think probably moved the needle the most so far this trade deadline, and that's Houston Astros. They went out and they got their ace from last year. They got Justin Verlander, and they gave up those 2 prospects, and they're going to be eating a good amount of Verlander's salary as well. So, Matt, you weren't on during when we were talking about that. What do you think about the trade and the return for the Mets, as well as Verlander heading back to Houston?
I mean, I think it was like Verlander's been better lately outside of his rough few starts that he had coming off of injury at the start of the season. But still, you get two of the Astros' top prospects, right? I think it was like they're 1 and 4 in their system. And you're getting that for a guy who's 40 years old making $96 million. Yeah, you're going to eat most of that money if you're Houston or if you're New York. I think I saw something where they're eating like 50+ million of that. And so I think from the Mets perspective, it's a good move, and it's a move they probably needed to make, even though you would like, I mean, obviously you would like to have Verlander still around as kind of like a veteran leader, but at the same time, like, I don't think the Mets they're 6 games back on the wild card spot. I don't think they were making the postseason. It's like, I mean, if you can get something for Verlander now, especially if you're getting like 2 of the Astros' top prospects, I mean, that almost feels like an offer you can't refuse, even though you are going to be eating most of that money. And it's something that, I mean, when you're a team like the Mets and you have the resources because of the market that you live in, and obviously the owner that they have, like, the more money you eat, it's smart because you're able to get a better return. And I think the Mets got a very good return from Houston's perspective. I mean, you guys said it already. He was their ace. He's won 2 Cy Youngs with them. He was coming off a Cy Young season last year. And now he is heading back to the place where he's most familiar with, he's most comfortable with. And I mean, I think the Rangers and the Astros are like neck and neck. It's only like a game or 2 difference in the division. And the Rangers were making their punch. They acquired Max Scherzer. They've acquired a couple other pieces whose names are escaping me right now. But for the most part, they've made moves already. And the Astros the Astros finally have their counterpunch. And so I think it's a good move for both sides, if I'm being completely honest, especially since, again, the Mets were able to get a couple top prospects from a respectable system. And he's 40 years old, making 96 million or nearly 100 million, whatever number it is. But just given the circumstances, I think it's a good haul for the Mets, and I think it's the right move for the Astros to make as a sign of they're going for it again. And so I think that's just I think kind of both sides win that move, if I'm being completely honest, even though they're two outfield prospects, but at the same time, I still think it's a good haul.
Absolutely, yeah. I agree with you on that one completely. I mean, only downside for the Mets is they are still paying that $54 million, but could have been.
You have to.
Exactly. Could have been.
You have to.
I saw that what happened when Arenado got traded to the Cardinals. Rockies had to pay a ton of money because his contracts are crazy. Some of them you can't. Otherwise, it'd be virtually impossible to trade anyone. Oh,
and especially since it's like they're in New York. It's not like you're the Cleveland Guardians. Sorry to interrupt, but like it's not like you're the Cleveland Guardians trading this guy on some big salary and you have to eat most of that money when you're not willing to. Like we know Cohen's willing to pay up and to eat money, and yeah, they're still, I think, way above the last luxury tax threshold. But at the same time, when you're getting a decent haul for these pitchers that you're trading, and you're relieving some of that flexibility for next season, and you're getting this return, like it feels like a win-win.
Absolutely. Like you said, Matt, it's they're upgrading their market for prospects by spending this money and shelling out the money for the player. So you're essentially buying higher prospects. You're buying a better prospect if you're Steve Cohen right now where you're at. So you go out and you can get a Drew Gilbert and Ryan Clifford for Verlander because you have the salary and you have the capabilities. I'm just reading a report now here from Jeff Passan that the Tigers and the Dodgers had a trade in place that would have sent Eduardo Rodriguez to the Dodgers, but Rodriguez invoked his 10-team no trade clause to block the deal.
Yeah, that's what I just saw.
Who are the other 9 teams?
That's a good question. Because, I mean, if you don't want to go to the Dodgers is probably the best opportunity for a lot of players to kind of go get a bag and go maybe move to a winning team, especially going from a team like Detroit. So that's actually, I'm curious about what the other 10 teams or 9 teams were. But he's at
when you say Eduardo Rodriguez and the Dodgers, I just think of his glove smash in Game 4 of the World Series in 2018 when Puig hit that homer. But
that's the first.
I personally want to forget everything about that World Series, but I unfortunately can't.
So at least this article says that it didn't name all of them, but it named that there is also a couple more teams that he would not go to, including the Orioles, the Reds, and the Diamondbacks. So those 3 will not be having Eduardo Rodriguez, considering that he turned down the Dodgers, which I don't know why you'd want to turn down the Dodgers. I'm not really
right.
I'm not interested in thinking what is going on in his head. But LA versus Detroit, kind of interesting for sure.
Does he hate the West Coast?
Potentially.
But the teams that you named were mostly East Coast teams.
Yeah.
Orioles as well. Good point.
He hates small market teams, but he's in a small market or smaller market.
He hates somewhat successful teams in the regular season. 3 teams all leaving their divisions at least. Doesn't want to go there. Wants to stay in Detroit where it doesn't have the pressure on him to really win. He can just hang out, play some baseball, and get paid, I guess.
Can we get more activity, please?
Yeah, this is
so boring.
It's been quiet.
It's been quiet, and it's like I guess it's probably due to the market because it's a buyer's market.
We got players out here that need to be traded.
Right.
Like Tommy Pham's got to go.
Last season was crazy, wasn't it? The deadline.
It was a lot more action than this. I'll tell you that. David Bednar needs to go. I mean,
the one deadline that's comparable to at least this one is probably the 2021 because it was COVID.
Yeah.
And that was like 30 games into a 60-game season or whenever it was. It was like
that was an odd one for sure.
End of August or no one was making moves because they had that weird playoff format where like half the league was making
everybody was in it, right?
I'll say, I guess, just to bring up another team that I know, Matt, you and I talked about before as potentially being sellers is the St. Louis Cardinals. And I think they've done a good job so far selling some of their guys off, but I do think they probably still have some more to go. And wouldn't be surprised if we see more guys leave there. Obviously, today it was, oh, why am I blanking? Paul DeJong went to Toronto. Saw Jordan Montgomery move earlier in the last couple of days. It doesn't surprise me, but I'm also surprised we haven't seen any rumors necessarily surrounding maybe Arenado or Paul Goldschmidt. I know they have big contracts, so that's probably part of it. But if they're
And the no trade clause for Arenado.
that's right, yeah. Yeah, you can.
I bet wasn't there rumors out there? I mean, I know it got kind of shut down pretty quickly, but there were rumors that them and the Dodgers were in talks for Arenado.
I believe so.
And he was like willing to waive his no trade clause. I think the Los Angeles Times reported it was like he was only willing to waive his no trade clause for that team.
Yeah.
But then I don't think talks really matriculated anywhere. Okay. But it was something along those lines.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals are doing a pretty good job at selling here. They got rid of DeJong and Hicks. Obviously went to the Blue Jays, and so not bad here from the Cardinals. They're going to offload some more too.
Yeah. I mean, I know I'm blanking on some of the bigger name guys who are left, but what are some of your guys' top targets who are still out there that you think should get traded, and potentially where could they end up going?
You wait for the Cardinals, or you just say it in general?
Just in general.
Oh, okay. I thought you just meant the Cardinals. I was like, bro, that Jack Flaherty.
Yeah, Jack Flaherty.
Dylan Carlson packaged in New York is going to hit like a questionable stake.
I think Tommy Pham should go. To answer your question, Jerry, I think Tommy Pham is destined to go. I think Scott Barlow is probably going to go here any minute. Kenyon Middleton, now that the White Sox are really all in this thing. Tim Anderson. Yasmani Grandal was apparently all but a lock to be sold. The closers for the Pirates and Tigers, David Bednar and Alex Lang, are probably both going to go as well. And those guys, I would think, are gone already. Teoscar Hernandez even potentially. So I think there's still plenty of market left for a lot of these guys, as well as these starter pitchers that we've been talking about a little bit for the last 15 minutes. The Eduardo Rodriguez's and Jack Flaherty, James Paxton maybe even is getting some noise right now. So we'll have to wait and see. But I think that there's still plenty of time here. We have just under an hour until the trade deadline hits.
Talk about a quiet team, but like what's Boston doing? I mean, are they going to buy? Are they going to sell? Like, nothing. They're ahead of New York for like a game.
They've done nothing, right?
Right. I mean, they are getting Trevor Story back. They are hitting the baseball a whole lot better. Paxton's been a revelation for them this year. I think John Schreiber is coming back. I think sooner has he come back already. I can't remember. But like they're 2.5 games back of the wild card. They feel like a team that could go out and like get maybe not something considerably like not like a big deal, but they can go out and somewhere and at least add to what they already have, at least in the pitching staff realm of things. Like they could certainly add to their rotation, give it a little bit more depth.
They have to add to the rotation.
You're right, but like I don't know if it's going to be like a big name like a Mitch Keller, or if it's going to be like a smaller name like I don't know, like a Steven Matz or like a Flaherty, like someone who could just help him, give him just eat some innings. Like that would be. I mean, yeah, I already know he pitched there. I think last year, 2 years ago, but it almost could have been like a Rich Hill, like someone of maybe that caliber, just to give him some length and some depth, even though it's not. It's not. It's kind of inconsequential, but I expected them to be a little bit at least more active. I mean, we have less than an hour left until the actual deadline, and it feels like nothing's happening at all right now, other than the Burger acquisition. So
I'm not even seeing kind of rumors going around.
No,
all that much either. It's kind of just quiet space.
I mean, we're gonna get more as the 6 p.m. Eastern deadline hits, but
Well,
right now it's a lot more inactive than even I was expecting.
here's something
Yeah.
that I just saw both on Twitter and in our Vendetta Sports Slack group. Donovan Mitchell is on the recruiting trail to bring Shohei Ohtani to the Mets. Just tweeted out a picture of Ohtani in a Mets uniform saying "coming soon." That'd be something. I guess
I'd love to see it.
I bet you would.
I love how Donovan Mitchell recruits people to New York, and he's literally on the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah.
Like if somebody told you that Donovan Mitchell played in New York, you'd just believe it. It's pretty awesome.
We talking hoops now? I can do that all day. I'm just kidding.
Let's go back to the Red Sox a little bit. I did want to talk about the Red Sox a little bit because they do need to add another starting pitcher.
And to their bullpen.
They need to add some pitcher, and yes, to their bullpen and definitely to their starting rotation, I think, for me, because you can't get yourself into a wild card series with the lineup that they have if you're Boston and be like, oh, it's game 3, the season's on the line. Let's send out Cutter Crawford to start this game, right? So that's not happening.
Yeah.
You need to go get another starter. And so
Nick Pivetta.
Yeah, Nick Pivetta. I mean, Pivetta, since moving to the bullpen, has been excellent. But, that's exactly what he is. He's a long relief bullpen guy now.
Didn't he start a couple of nights ago and pitched really well?
He may have started a game against the Giants the other night.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's what I think happened. And he went I don't know, it's 7 shutout or whatever it was. But yeah, no, he was really good. But no, I agree.
Yeah, they definitely need to go get something else. And rumors are coming out now that the Rays are looking at Teoscar Hernandez and other bat first outfielders, according to Joel Sherman.
Teoscar was another name floated in Yankee land this morning, and it's another right-handed outfielder that strikes out a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, the Yankees continue to be perplexing, and Sherman.
I don't want to talk about them anymore. Let's stop talking.
He's also reporting one final note on them. He's also reporting that the Yankees have been asking the Rays about Manuel Margot. So
sick.
That's something that's going to push the needle. I'm sure.
Definitely. Out question. Savior of the season. Him and Franchi Cordero.
Yeah.
But what are some other teams that we haven't talked about yet that we just
one thing that we haven't talked about that I did want to see, are they going to do anything more? Which my answer would probably be no, is the Texas Rangers, right? Do you think that they're done? They added Jordan Montgomery and they added obviously Max Scherzer. That was the big piece. And that lineup looks pretty awesome as well. But we were just talking about the Texas Rangers and what they might or might not do at this point. 5:07 Eastern time. Trade deadlines in less than an hour. What are the Rangers doing?
I mean, I did hear you say Max Scherzer. That was the big one. That's the big name that they're going to get. I don't know if they'll go out and make any more big blockbuster trades, but just maybe some extra. You can never have too many arms, so maybe some bullpen help. I don't know how their bullpen's been, but at this point, it looks like, to me, at least in terms of standings, the Astros are catching them. Astros are getting Verlander. I think that gives them a little bit more of the boost. Obviously, having him as their ace last year, he knows how to pitch in Houston. I think that gives them an advantage over the Rangers. So I think it's now they'll be fighting in that wild card spot a little bit. So getting any little bit of help on that bullpen side, maybe another bat, maybe an outfielder to an extent, just something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I was
thinking.
I
would say if I had to guess. Go ahead, Matt.
No, I think they could just another outfielder.
If I had to guess, they do nothing.
Probably.
If I had to guess, they're done because they got Montgomery and Scherzer, and I don't think am I missing anything? Obviously, Chapman, yes. So that was their big one too a couple weeks ago. That was back in June. So I think they're all right. I think if you're the Rangers right now, you're okay.
I mean, Nathan Eovaldi just got placed on the IL, so maybe. I mean, I get that. But the Scherzer and Montgomery moves are probably insurance for something like that. But
Another team that we haven't really touched on, I heard you mention them very briefly, is the Rays, and they're a team that I thought would be trying to buy a little bit more, considering they do have a boatload of prospects and a boatload of guys that they can potentially just trade off and use as pieces. So I'm kind of surprised. Obviously, they did get Aaron Savale from Cleveland yesterday, and did they pick up someone today? Adrian Sampson and Manuel Rodriguez from the Cubs to get a little bit of extra pitching help, but kind of surprised you haven't seen more from the Rays, considering they have that space to bring in guys or pieces to trade away.
Oh, did you? I thought one of y'all said something on my fault. But I mean, I think they could still use some extra rotation help.
Yeah.
Because their rotation's been so beat up this entire season. Like Drew Rasmussen's been hurt. I think he's on the 60-day IL now. Obviously, Jeffrey Springs, who was one of the best pitchers in baseball for the first couple of weeks, is out for the season because I think he had Tommy John surgery. Like their pitching staff, I mean, Glasnow just got back, but he's been hurt for most of the season. Shane McClanahan's been a little bit unhealthy lately. And so it's like, yeah, they went out and got Savali, who is a quality. He's not going to light you up with the strikeout numbers, but he's a quality piece. And so now I think there is room for them to get another arm, but with the Rays, it's always like, all right, how many years of control is left on this player? Plus, like, what's he making right now? And like, I know they were in the running for a little while for Lance Lynn. Like it feels like they're like that would have been a good fit for Lance, even though he's had a bad season, or at least he's a little bit older than he once was, but he's having a worse season to his standards. He's getting hit hard a lot, but it felt like that plus a Savali would have helped. I mean, obviously, right now again they just have Savali, and I think they're only like 4 starters, 5 starters deep. Like they don't have a deep rotation at all, and maybe that's all they want for a team who is just a game and a half back or a game back of the AL East. And like their offense has also been struggling the last couple of months too, sneakily after their insane start. And it's like maybe they still can obviously, but feels like they're in position to get like another like bat to help them out. Like there's a couple of things that I would want them to make, but they've dealt with so much injuries this season. Like it's just, or so many injuries, excuse me, but like they've dealt with a lot there already, especially to their rotation, that I think they're just waiting for at least certain guys to get healthy, even though like, again, Rasmussen and Springs are 2 guys who are like practically out for the season. But I think they should be good. I think they should go out and get like another arm and maybe another bat. I don't know who, but it feels like they still have some holes to shore up. But again, it's like, what price do you want to pay? And if teams are the thing with the Rays as well, it's like if the Rays call you asking for a player, you should probably hang up the phone and reevaluate what's in that player you're missing that they're calling for, because the Rays always seem to get the most out of whomever they acquire. And so maybe they just haven't gotten much traction from that standpoint, because it's like, again, if the Rays call me up about player X, well, then I'm going to lock myself in a room with 15 of my scouts / talent evaluators / executives and see what's in that player that we're missing that they see. And so maybe there's something like that's coming to fruition, or like something like that's happening that we don't know.
Yeah, I'm never going to be one to question what the Rays do, right?
Right. Like, you're right. Like, if the Rays want someone, I'll be like, all right, what am I missing? Like,
why do they want them? What do they see?
Yeah, what do they see in this guy?
But I don't personally think that they're done. They haven't really done much this entire. I don't think they've made any move that's like pushed the needle too much. I think that they probably are going to go out and they're going to go get Teoscar Hernandez or Tommy Pham, one of these bats that's still out there, still floating around, one of those names that can give you some more power, and maybe like I think they need one more piece. And for a team that was, like they were unbelievable at the beginning of the season. And ever since like the end of May, they have just been really just coasting. It's almost like the team has been like, wow, we're so good that we can just coast for the rest of the season. And obviously it hasn't worked out that way. They're back in second place and they're a couple games behind the Orioles for first place. But I think you go try and win the AL East if you're the Rays. I think that you haven't had a better opportunity in a while to go out and grab a division title. So I don't see a reason if you're the Rays right now to not go out and buy, unless obviously what Matt said, they don't think that they're getting back what they're putting on the table.
Just a theory. I'm sure there's, again, they traded for Savali, so it's not like they haven't. It's not like they haven't gotten close to making any moves. It's just a matter of like what price are they willing to pay to make a move. But I agree. I think they are like, again, you look at their record like after like mid-May.
I mean, yeah, they started.
They've been like a 500 team or like close to.
Yeah, I would say probably a week or so ago I saw stats. They started 30-9 and went 30-31 since. So
right,
very very subpar the last couple months, and that's not what you need. I think they need something that'll like get them back to their winning ways. Obviously, like you said, Matt, they have been injured a ton. Their bats cooled off substantially as well. So maybe it's getting a fresh face in there, someone else who can just add some pop, get the bats kind of going again, or on the pitching side, help out there. But you never really want to peak too early. And at the moment, it seems like that's what the Rays have done, is they peaked far too early in such a long baseball season that you want to be playing your best baseball end of August, early September, until obviously the playoffs go through, which that's what we saw last year with the Philadelphia Phillies. Can't remember if they made any big moves at the deadline, but they kind of suddenly took off after the trade deadline and obviously ran all the way to the World Series and coming up just short against the Astros.
They made a couple of moves that pushed the needle, is what the Phillies did last year. They didn't exactly go out and get the biggest names at the deadline last year, but they made moves that pushed the needle and made their team better and filled holes.
Yep, filled holes. That's exactly what we've been talking about, is teams have to go and do that to fix and find and just solidify their entire rotation, whether it's pitching or lineup 1 through 9, batting wise. It's just, there's always something that teams can fix, and I feel like some of them really got.
It's also what the Atlanta Braves did when they were a fringe team in 2021. Is they went out and they bought, and they were a young team, kind of like almost like an Orioles or a Reds right now, that were like, they're close to competing in their division. They're probably maybe not with.
Connection go out.
Oh, it might have.
Yeah, I think that was the year they got like Adam Duvall, and they got there was like a couple other like outfield pieces that they acquired. I think they got Soler.
That's a team that hasn't done it. Have they done much? I know the Braves.
They got like, they addressed their bullpen a little bit. I think they got.
I
don't remember the guy's name from Colorado.
Brad Hand from the Rockies.
They got Brad Hand. They also got, I think, like Pierce Johnson.
Okay, yeah, Brad Hand. I wouldn't say from a Rockies fan standpoint, that's nothing extremely special. Can give you he pitches at cores and times, but Rockies bullpen is just not good. The pitching coaches haven't been great, so I don't know. Maybe Atlanta has someone that can fix him up a bit, but
we know how Braves magic works.
Exactly.
He's going to be pitching to a 2.70 ERA for the rest of the season.
He's got a 4.54 at the moment in Colorado. So I was surprised that they wanted him. I was like, maybe it's just they'll fix him, find something to do there. So
yeah, I mean, he's gonna be locking down Game 5 of the NLCS.
Yeah, I did think it was funny when I saw the report. It was from, I don't know, I want to say some Braves reporter, and he's like, getting the closer of the Rockies. And the comments below just said he has 0 saves. Yep, Brad Hand isn't our closer, so a little bit of a mistake there, but I don't know. Rockies aren't doing much. Braves have done a little bit, so we will see.
Yeah, and to talk a little bit now about, there's one team that I did want to talk about is the Cubs, and they're so in the middle here of buying and selling. They went out and they got Jamer Candelario, and I like that move a lot. And they said that they were going to buy, but they also got Jose Cuas from the Royals. So if you're Chicago, right, you're a couple games out of the wild card. How can you're deciding that you're going to buy, right? And your team, you didn't expect to go win a World Series this year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that the Chicago Cubs are going to win the World Series this season.
No.
Right? So I don't think that they have the roster right now to go out and win a game like that. So why are these fringe teams like the Cubs, who don't have World Series aspirations, never had World Series aspirations this season, why are they buying when they could cash in Cody Bellinger, who is the hottest hitter on the planet right now, and Marcus Stroman, who was really good and then became really bad these last like 6 or 7 starts? I don't see why you don't go cash in those 2 guys and get a haul of prospects.
Yeah,
make the team really good for the next 5 years, because the Cubs have the foundation in place now. They have these guys that are coming up soon, and they have they're in a good spot. But I don't think buying is the route for the Cubs this deadline.
Damn, I knew Stroman had a little rough stretch there for a bit, but I didn't realize how bad he's been those last 3 games. 3 games given up 6, 7, and 4 earned.
Yeah, he's kind of fallen off of
innings. So
they're starting to figure him out.
Yeah, maybe that's the thing with Stroman, is people didn't want to. They see this happening and they're like, oh, we don't actually want to trade for him anymore. Or it's, if they do want to trade for him, it's the Cubs don't like what they're getting in return, similar to what we were talking about earlier with other players. It's maybe something like that. But Cody Bellinger definitely has his worth. You could probably trade him anywhere at the moment.
Isn't he also on he's on an expiring?
Oh, that could be true. Yeah.
So it's like, why wouldn't you? I mean, do you think he's going to resign there, or do they think he's going to resign there?
I don't think so.
I would doubt it.
But also, we have to factor in it is. I mean, it's different because of the team that is also in their same city, but it is Chicago, and it's like this is the closest they've gotten to competing since they traded away Rizzo and Bryant and Baez. And so it's like maybe it's like they see this little window again. They're only a few games back of the wild card spot. I'm totally with you guys, but I'm just trying to play devil's advocate for a second.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and you can make that same argument with the Orioles, right? Like they're a couple games out, or not even a couple games out. They're in first by a couple games, and they haven't won in a really long time. So why not go buy everything? But it's so hard to do that. I can't believe that the Cubs are buying. I really cannot believe it.
I would be trading Stroman. I'd be trading Bellinger. I'd see what I can get for Hendricks.
It's like their fans are running the front office right now.
All right,
we can run the front office.
I'm just realized what time it is.
Dude, it's 40 minutes, man.
I know. I got to.
There's nothing. There's literally nothing.
I got to be at work in 40 minutes. So.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I put the wrong time. Yeah, 6. Oh, yeah, I wrote the wrong time down to Julian. I got to be there at 5:30. So, or 5:30 Eastern. I have to get heading out. So, it's been a pleasure, guys. Hopefully, for your sake, something else happens, because this deadline's been a little slow the last couple hours, or last 30, 40 minutes, I guess. But pleasure.
Am I co-host? I can still host it, I think.
Yeah, you guys are both welcome to. I think you guys should be able to.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
I know I am, I think. But
yeah, as long as Matt, can you see the end broadcast thing on yours? Yep, so sweet. Let you guys take it over and hold this down. Hey, pleasure talking this baseball with you. It's been an exciting deadline. We'll definitely be doing this again for other sports down the road. Hopefully some other stuff happens this evening. Peace out, boys.
All right. So we've got less than 40 minutes to go.
The biggest rumors that we've gotten are Eduardo Rodriguez declining a trade from the Dodgers. That's the biggest
20 minutes. That has been the news so far. So stick with us. We're coming on in
as we try to figure out the final 9 teams that he has a no trade clause for.
We know that the Dodgers are one of them. John Heyman reports that Harrison Bader is drawing interest. Bader wasn't in the lineup tonight for the Yankees, but if they do decide to go to the route of selling with 30 minutes left, then that could be what they decide to do.
Sweet, I guess. I'm really just like, I just don't do nothing, but every team is seemingly doing, not every team, but most teams are doing nothing. So
I'm sorry, you cut out. Can you repeat what you just said?
Oh no, I was just saying, like, at this, just don't do nothing. I saw a tweet from Joel Sherman that said there's been 29 teams who have made a trade since July 1st, and the one that hasn't are the New York Yankees.
That's insane, because they were in such a good spot, like, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and
I don't want to say they were in such a good spot.
Bat.
They've been right around where they've been at for a while.
But
or at least, like,
not go get another bat is perplexing.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like, I'm sorry if I mispronounced this guy's name, but Mike Puma from the New York Post. Tommy Pham poked his head into the manager's office and left the clubhouse in street clothes. No word on he's been traded, but the signs point that way.
There you go.
This has been a tweet from 3 minutes ago. So.
Yep, there you go. So it looks like Tommy Pham is likely on the move here. That's the name I've been saying all day long, especially when they moved Verlander, was that Tommy Pham was going to get moved somewhere. So if we want to talk about Tommy Pham real quick, what do you think there are any destinations for him? The first team that comes to mind is probably the Rays.
I was going to just say the Rays.
Yeah, the Rays are probably the most likely outcome and destination like that for Tommy Pham. Mets outfielder who – pretty cool story with Tommy Pham. He was a 630 OPS guy last season for the Boston Red Sox. Career was trending downwards, not looking like he was going to be really in the league anymore after this year. But he got cataracts, surgery on his eyes, and he came back for the Mets this year, signed a 1-year prove-it deal, and really turned into a guy that was really strong for them and reliable. While a lot of other dudes were not reliable for the Mets. It ended up being Tommy Pham this season as a guy who's been really strong, and whoever ends up landing Pham at this deadline is going to get a good power hitting outfielder.
I mean, just a couple other teams that I know I mentioned. I think the Rangers could possibly use another outfielder. Trying to think of like teams that are in the AL, like maybe the Marlins.
Could be a Marlins, another move.
Dodgers maybe, because I mean they need. I mean they addressed it a little bit with Kike, but they need help in the outfield.
Yeah, I talked a little bit about that earlier for potential trade for Tommy Pham to the Dodgers. That would make sense given their prospect pool. I'm surprised that the Dodgers haven't done anything. Obviously, we heard about the fact that Eduardo Rodriguez was they had a deal in place for him, but he was not ever moved, and that never materialized itself because of his no trade clause. But the Dodgers awfully quiet. Some more reports here. Colton Wong has been saying goodbye to his Seattle Mariners teammates in the dugout and has apparently left the clubhouse, according to Ryan Divish. So he may be on his way out as well. And this is literally what we have 25 or 30 minutes before the MLB trade deadline, is that some players are saying goodbye.
Austin Hedges, their team, that he's been a name that I've seen his name's floated about. Our team he's a player that has interest.
Who's that?
Austin Hedges.
Yeah, Hedges has been floating around as well. Sorry, you cut out there. So Hedges has been his name has been floating around, and that it's all just a bunch of rumors right now from where we are with 30 minutes to go. I mean, it's awfully quiet considering that Verlander, Scherzer, and those guys have been moved already. It's definitely a quiet time to be looking at this trade deadline unless things start to materialize themselves.
So at this point, I mean, obviously we talked about Houston a little bit, but like so far, who do you think has been like a winner of the deadline, and who do you think's been like a loser? Like who are just a couple teams that come to mind for you?
Yeah, winner. I'll start off with the Angels. I really like what the Angels have done this trade deadline. They know what they have with Shohei Ohtani, and they know what they have with Mike Trout really here for this season. And they're saying, okay, this is it. We know we're only going to have Ohtani for the rest of this year. So they go out and they get Lucas Giolito and Reynaldo Lopez from the Chicago White Sox. I thought that was a really nice package. And they gave up, obviously, Kai Busch, who's a pretty good prospect, and Edgar Caro, who's a little bit less of a prospect. But I thought that was a good deal for the Angels to go get another starter and a reliable bullpen piece. Also, they went out and they made a nice move with the Rockies, and they really didn't give up much at all. They gave up some lower-tier prospects for C.J. Cron and Randall Grichuk. And they replaced Taylor Ward, who got an injury and broke had some facial fractures and is now out for the season, most likely. And they replaced him with Randall Grichuk, which I thought that was a really nice move. Grichuk homers in his first game as an Angel, really a sign for good things to come. C.J. Cron obviously is a good replacement at first base for a guy like Jared Walsh, who's been, I think they DFA'd him. I might be wrong on that, but he just took a major step back this season. So I think Cron, when you put him at first base, is a really nice addition to that lineup. They made that lineup stronger. They made it longer, and I think that was a good move for the Angels. And the Angels have been really a winner at this early part of the deadline. As far as a loser, right now with 30 minutes to go, the Dodgers, right? Because if they walk away with Lance Lynn and Joe Kelly, and that's the only thing that they got at this deadline, I believe that's the only thing they got at this deadline, then they're losers because they have to upgrade a little bit more if they want to compete with the National League.
Yeah, it feels like Lance Lynn's the move before the move.
Right.
Like a move that you get to, you lengthen your rotation a little bit. Joe Kelly helps your bullpen, helps bridge that gap a little bit, but it feels like it's just the move before the move. And I don't know if there's like a big move outside of like the Scherzer Verlander, which is now off the table, but it still feels like there's again, as we talked about, there's still room for growth there.
Yeah, and one quick piece of news that just came out now, the Texas Rangers have acquired Austin Hedges from the Pittsburgh Pirates. So there's the move of Hedges, and to replace the injured Jonah Heim, who is going to be on the shelf for a little bit. They go out and they get Hedges. So it's a good move, I think, there. But Hedges is a 180 batting average guy, so he's going to be a backup, and that's where we're at right now.
I don't know if he's tailed off, but he's a fairly good defensive catcher, right?
Yes. He's in the upper tier of defensive catchers for sure.
Okay, so it's I know like the framing and like the pop time for him have always been pretty good, especially his framing. But
yeah, and a good catcher can make a pitcher look really good. We look at San Diego. You got Gary Sanchez, who's a guy who's thought of it as an afterthought as far as hitting the baseball, but he comes in and he's able to make Blake Snell into a pitcher that he really wasn't before, and he made him look better. So,
and it's just funny because Gary's been also like a below average defender as a catcher his entire career.
Yeah,
he just finds there's just this connection that he has with Blake Snell, which I guess it's cool to see from like, again, an outsider's perspective, but like in terms of like the blocking and framing pitches, I mean, he's always been a little bit below average. So the fact that he's able to do that with Blake Snell, who's a very good pitcher, and kind of, I mean, I remember like the start to Blake's season it wasn't like average, but it wasn't like the best. But then you get Gary in there, and he's become one of the best pitchers in baseball for like 2 months. And that's really, other than like maybe a bad start or two, it's kind of maintained itself. And so it's just funny how things work in that. in that respect. Because again, Gary's not that good of a defensive catcher. At least he hasn't been throughout his career. Now he is, at least for one particular pitcher, has been.
Yeah,
they've developed a relationship.
Yeah, and it helps both sides, right?
Mm-hmm.
It helps, obviously, Snell is the main benefactor, but Gary Sanchez is going to start playing every time Blake Snell pitches. So it's good to see for both sides there. And speaking of the Padres, they really haven't done anything besides that Rich Hill trade, which they got Rich Hill and G-Man Choi when they traded away Jackson Wolf, Alfonso Rivas, and Estuar Suero, all minor league players. So besides Rivas, who's had some time in the majors. So the Padres are appearing as buyers, but they haven't exactly done anything to push the needle yet. It's interesting. It's an interesting position to see where they're at right now.
And again, like we talked about this a little bit before with Jerry on, but like this could be a team that buys or sells. But like they have, if they want to, they have pieces that they can sell. But I don't think, as you illuminated to earlier, Rich Hill and G-Man Choi aren't really moving it for really not just the Padres, but like for anyone. No disrespect, but it just feels like those are like minor moves, and those are also just like moves for some sort of depth that they want to create, which is, I guess, fine in that respect. But like if you're a team that's 6 games out of a wild card spot, you have holes that you need to address. And again, as you mentioned earlier, that they're the worst team in baseball with runners in scoring position. Like their offense has been pretty. It's been a roller coaster for the most part, but it's still like it's an inconsistent offense. And like they have the names, obviously, and obviously like Tatis began the season because he was suspended. Like he didn't start the season with the team because he was suspended. But like outside of that, you still have guys like Juan Soto, who has been again underperformed to his standards. Xander Bogaerts, who started out the season hot, but he's been fine. Like he hasn't been great. He hasn't been like incredibly terrible. Like Cronenworth, I feel like it's been below average. Like I mean, Ha-Seong Kim's been good, but like it's just been a matter of like their lineup hasn't produced to the standard that it should be producing at. And when you have Juan Soto, who I think he's either has an extra year of control, if I'm mistaken, right? He has one.
Yeah, he's got one more after this one.
And then like Josh Hader, who is an expiring, like Blake Snell's a tradable piece. Like you have guys that you can sell high on, or at least sell higher on. Maybe not in Soto's case, but you can sell higher on and get some sort of value in return while still competing with Manny, with Bogarts, with Tatis. Like you still have guys that you can compete with as long as like you're also able to maybe sell a couple of these guys, maybe for higher level prospects, mid-level prospects, or even some major league talent if a team's willing to give that to you. It's just a matter of like what other teams are valuing these players as. Because I've used this comment with like the NBA, and we see it all the time in different sports, but like you usually value your own guys more than other teams value your guys. So it's like the Padres might value Josh Hader more than Team X, you know?
Which makes trades harder.
Right. It does. It does.
Yeah. So it's a hard position to be in if you're a team like the Cubs or like the Padres. You know, another team out there is like the Mariners, who are kind of like so in between where they don't know if they're buyers or sellers. So you make moves of both nature. Boston, you know, the Yankees are apparently not going to go that route. They're not going to do anything, it seems like. Milwaukee is kind of established themselves as buyers. But I did want to shift. I want to ask you, who do you think is one team that's kind of being quiet, or the one team that's kind of being quiet that should be doing more to go out and improve their team?
That's a good question. I mean, if I'm being completely honest, I would say the Orioles. Like, not say the Orioles are in like a bad shape, because they're not. we've seen how good they are this year. But again, like I don't think you wouldn't have to trade top prospects for a couple of these guys on the market just because of how much team control that they have. But to me, am I wrong? Like they've been a team that just, I feel like hasn't done a whole lot, or at least more to the standard that I expected them to. Lately, at least in terms of trades, I mean. But like, I just feel like a team, like it feels like this is like a window that they're creating. But at the same time, I wouldn't, as we talked about earlier, I wouldn't give up a whole lot for player X either. But I lost connection. Oh, I guess it's just me for now. But I would probably say the Orioles are a team that I'm looking at as a team that I wish I'm not saying I wish, but I think they could have gotten more. Again, there's still 20 minutes left and really nothing's happened, but it feels like they've been a fairly inactive team.
Yeah, I'm having some connection issues. Sorry about that.
No worries. I said the Orioles.
Yeah.
As a team that I just think that this is like they're creating a window for themselves to where it's like if you can get a controllable piece, mostly in the rotation, but if like you can get, I don't know, someone to even lengthen that bullpen even more, maybe not like a big name, but something that helps in that facet. I'm trying to think of like who, I mean, I know they got Hicks, but that was earlier in the offseason. They've made more trades since, I think, right? Or at least like one or two more. I'm blanking here. But it feels like I expected them to do a little bit more, to have a little bit more of a sense of urgency.
Yeah, they got Fujinami from the A's. They don't have much of a sense of urgency at all right now. They did some minor league trading, but it's been they're not pushing the needle, right? That we've been talking about kind of all episode for this trade deadline, is that they haven't pushed the needle too much, and it's been hard for the Orioles to find a good partner to maybe go get another starting pitcher. It seems like the starting pitcher market is just extremely high right now, because besides Scherzer and Verlander, what other starter even got moved? Michael Lorenzen, I know he got moved. Montgomery got moved. Rich Hill was kind of thought of as an afterthought, but he got moved. Obviously, that's a lower grade one. So the starting pitcher market for these guys has been tough, and I think the Angels kind of set that when they went out and they got Lucas Giolito, as well as the Dodgers with Lance Lynn. So it's tough to be a team looking for a starting pitcher right now.
Yeah, I don't disagree. We have almost 15 minutes left, and there is nothing, dude. We're
hearing nothing.
Well, right, but like nothing yet. But this is almost like the meme where it's like you're in a desert and you just see like a tumbleweed or something like float across your screen. Like this is what it feels like right now, just in terms of like the trade activity at this point. Again, there's still obviously there can be moves made up until the 6 p.m. Eastern deadline. There are trades that still come in after that aren't reported right away because they're trying to get the paperwork in by that 6 p.m. Eastern deadline. And so sometimes we don't hear about it until 6:10 or like 10 minutes after, 15 minutes after, whatever. Like remember the Verlander one that happened in, was it 17, 18, where that came in like 10 minutes after, and we're all just like, what the hell's going on here? And so
that's definitely a route that happens a lot.
Yeah,
I thought of Yoenis Cespedes getting traded to the Mets in 2015. We didn't hear about that one until probably, I think it was like 4:30.
Yeah,
it was like it takes a lot of time for these trades to get processed, and especially teams right now is the window where teams are doing things because they need to. Right? It's like the Dodgers are on the phone with somebody, and they're going to give up a healthy amount of prospects to go get another starting pitcher, most likely. So this time might be a little quiet, at least for as far as news comes in, as that comes into play.
Joel Sherman tweeted something 7 minutes ago. The expectation is that Cardinals will still trade Jack Flaherty, perhaps in conjunction with an outfielder such as Dylan Carlson or Tyler O'Neill. The Dodgers still want to add a starting pitcher, perhaps the Braves too. And so it looks like there's a possibility.
No word on the Orioles, no word on the Cubs.
Yep.
Interesting. I saw that the Twins may be in on Tommy Pham.
I did see that.
So we'll have to wait and see on that one.
They need offense.
They do badly.
Worst way.
That's a team we haven't really talked about much, and the Twins have gotten a lot of good production out of their starting pitching this year, and their bullpen doesn't seem half bad either. But God, that lineup is just something that is without when you have Carlos Correa hitting what he's hitting right now and not being the guy that you pay that much money to. If he's not that guy right now, and you have a guy like Byron Buxton, who's also been slow this year out of the gates and is just not hitting, and nobody in that lineup is hitting right now, and you're in first place by a game and a half, and you kind of see the Guardians, and the Guardians are not exactly buying at this trade deadline. I'd be interested to see what the Twins do. I would think that they would have to go get a Tommy Pham or somebody else, depending on the price.
Yeah, and it's like you have a bunch of guys who are hitting either below average or like league average. And I mean, Julian, who was a second baseman who's come up, he's been hitting he's been hitting the hell out of the ball. But other than that, like, you're not getting a whole lot of production. I mean, I know Joey Gallo at the start of the season was hitting the ball much better than he is now. I mean, the power's still there, but like, you're not getting a lot from him. Kirilloff has been okay, I guess. Max Kepler's been okay. Like, you're just getting league average production. I mean, Donnie Barrels has had his moments, absolutely. But like, if you're not getting production from, I mean, Buxton's been, I think you mentioned him already, but like, Buxton's been like league average. Like, you have a bunch of like league average hitters or guys who are hitting below league average. Like, you need some sort of injection of offense. And this is like, they're in a bad AL Central. And it's like, if you can capitalize at least in, like, just add something. Like, I don't think, as to your point, I don't think they're going to add a rotation on him, but like, if you could maybe add to that bullpen, or at least get someone who's not swing and miss in that lineup, then you're doing yourself favor against the Guardians, who Shane Bieber just went on the IL, like, and they're riding your tail. I mean, they just traded Ahmed Rosario for Noah Syndergaard, which feels like a gigantic nothing burger. But at the same time, like, this is a team who also hasn't produced offensively for the most part this entire season. And so if you're the Twins, you will at least want to capitalize on that, not just sit on your hands and do nothing. When you are atop of the division, like, if they were in any other division, I'd probably tell them to, like, sell, or at least get some pieces back if you're able to, even though you're not selling high on most of these guys, and kind of let the kids play a little bit. But they're not. They're atop the AL Central. So it's going to be even more interesting, because it's like the team who makes that third wild card spot, I think, would play the AL Central, or at least play the winner of that in the postseason. At least I believe so. And so, or at least they'd be in position to. But it just makes it all the more interesting for that wild card race and for what the Twins can do and perhaps will do.
Yeah, I think they've got, like you said, just do something, right? Go out and show the organization, show the fans that you're committing to this year. You're in first place right now, okay? You're not you can go on a run, get hot in the playoffs, and all of a sudden you win 8 out of 10 games in the playoffs and you're in the World Series, right? So we're not far if you're the Twins from being a really competitive team that goes out and goes and wins the AL Central.
Oh, I got some news for you.
Go ahead.
Arizona Diamondbacks are acquiring outfielder Tommy Pham.
All right, there it is.
Jeff Passan.
Tommy Pham is headed to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Andy Martino and Jeff Passan are on it. That's a big one for the D-backs. They get a really good bat with Tommy Pham, and I'm interested to see what the Mets got back. Obviously, that fire sale for New York continues. And
I don't think we
Arizona
set the
ended up with
Diamondbacks
Pham.
for Tommy Pham, did we?
I'm sorry?
I don't think we set the Diamondbacks for Tommy Pham, did we?
Nope. No, we didn't.
Okay.
I didn't believe that was something that we floated out there. But I think that's a good move, right? I think that's a good move for Arizona. That's a threatening bat in that lineup. And talking a little bit more about Tommy Pham, 268 average, 10 homers, 11 stolen bases, and 820 OPS. I believe his batting average on balls in play is not very good, which means that he's getting unlucky this year. I'm going to look at his Baseball Savant page really quick.
My question is, I think, where do they play him? Is he playing left? Is he playing right? Because I know like Gurriel's gotten time there. I know obviously Alec Thomas is playing. Corbin Carroll, who's been the NL Rookie of the Year so far, at least in my opinion. Like where exactly is Pham going to play? Is he going to split time in the corner outfield? Like what's his role, I guess, now there for the rest of the time being?
Yeah, I think that you probably just went and got your DH, right? If you're Arizona with Tommy Pham.
Gurriel's been playing there too.
Yeah, Gurriel's been there too. So Gurriel's been in left, and you got Carroll in right and Alec Thomas in center. So there's not much room for Tommy Pham out there as far as the Diamondbacks are concerned. But I think that you can DH him for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And you definitely can DH him, and that's probably where he'll end up most nights. At least that's my guess.
I mean, he could probably take over for McCarthy on some nights too.
Oh yeah, for sure. He'll be honestly, I could see a McCarthy maybe being involved in a return, although I think that that's unlikely as far right now.
Oh, I got another trade.
All right, they're coming in.
Baltimore Orioles are acquiring right-handed pitcher Jack Flaherty.
There it is. The Orioles. I called this one earlier in the show that they would go get a starting pitcher, and it may not be high-grade starting pitcher. And the words Jack Flaherty did come out of my mouth. So I'm claiming credit that the Orioles are going to get Jack Flaherty. They were definitely watching this live show, and they went ahead and called the Cardinals to see what they could get. So that's good. That's big news there for the Orioles. So we got 2 trades coming in now, which is more than we had in the previous 20 minutes.
It's more than we had in the last hour. I mean, yeah, they were watching the stream when I said they needed to do more. And they listened. They picked up the phone. Good for the Orioles. I mean, I'm not super high on Jack Flaherty, but he does have like a decently solid pedigree.
Plus experience.
Yeah.
He's been there.
Yep.
He's been there before, which is more than anybody on their current roster can say in their rotation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, other than I want to say this guy's experienced, but he's just been around the block, Kirk Gibson. But other than this is a good move for him, I think.
I think I heard some absurd stat the other day that Gibson was the only pitcher on the Orioles that had more than something like 100 innings pitched in the big league level. Something ridiculous. So they needed to go out and get another starting pitcher.
Yeah. Let's see.
So we have the return.
St. Louis.
We have the return for the Tommy Pham trade. It is Jeremy Rodriguez, who is a hitter who is currently in Single A, I believe.
Okay.
No, wait, I'm looking at the wrong guy. Hold on. So yeah, Jeremy Rodriguez is the return for the Mets in exchange for Yes, he's a hitter. So he's in rookie ball right now. Still ways away. He's 17 years old.
Oh,
and
wow. Okay.
He's got a 751 OPS in 120 at bats in rookie ball. 17 years old. So international prospect, young player that the Mets get back for the 35-year-old Tommy Pham. And, the Mets are probably at this point just offloading and getting whatever they can get.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, with all of these trades, you still got to find a way to develop them.
Right.
But again, I think the Mets have done a solid job of getting returns back, especially for, again, Max and Verlander. And I think Robertson netted also like a decent return, if I could remember correctly.
Yeah, they ended up with Marco Vargas, who became their 6th-ranked prospect in their organization. So that's a good haul to get back for a reliever, a rental reliever. And what the Mets have done now is they're making themselves younger. At the end of the day, they traded away. You talk about trading away. This is a full sale now for them. They traded away Canna, Pham. They've traded away Scherzer and Verlander, and they may not be done either. They could go trade a Narvaez or a Carlos Carrasco, Daniel Vogelback, although I don't think any 3 of those guys are really getting any traction at all. So, yeah, Tommy Pham is
5
gone.
minutes. 5 minutes until the deadline.
5 minutes until the deadline, and there is now, according to Mark Fonsen, there's a growing buzz that the White Sox may trade Dylan Cease over the next 10 minutes.
I'm assuming he said that 6 minutes ago.
He did say that 6 minutes ago.
Okay.
So,
you said 10 minutes. I was like, wait, that's not how much time is left in the deadline. But
yes, there's not a lot of time left. Dylan Cease there's growing buzz that he could be moved. We already have a trade for another starting pitcher with the Orioles acquiring Jack Flaherty, who this year Flaherty has struggled at times. He was out for a couple starts with an injury and missed the beginning of the season. But this is Flaherty's first season back since having going through a couple of injuries. And a guy with a 1.55 WHIP, 4.43 ERA.
the New York Yankees are acquiring right-handed reliever Kenyon Middleton from the Chicago White Sox.
So he ends up with the Yankees. That's interesting. Middleton ends up with the Yankees.
The Yankees bullpen has been taxed beyond belief this season, so it's just, I guess, to add length to that. But
I don't
not
hate that
inconsequential, but it's not something that's going to blow your socks off.
No, and it'll be interesting to see. We were talking about the Yankees' lack of a farm system, and it'll be interesting to see what exactly they got back.
It's probably not much.
Probably not much considering the other relievers that have been traded today. Although Kenyon Middleton has been excellent this season. So the Yankees are getting just another really good piece of that bullpen. But that's it. I mean, like
I don't think that it's not the problem. The bullpen's not the problem.
You're not hitting. So you're going to go out and get a reliever.
He hit 260.
Yeah, can he hit 20 home runs for you? Maybe be a lefty bat and go on the short porch. I mean, this is kind of it. Jolly all just tweeted.
Does this
count as doing nothing? Yes.
No, you're right, but all it is. It's just lengthening the bullpen that's been incredibly taxed. But then you look at Middleton, and he's already made 40 appearances this season, just about.
Yeah, exactly.
So what exactly are the Yankees doing here? Doesn't really cool, dude.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Middleton, but this doesn't solve anything.
Is Eduardo Rodriguez going to get moved here? I mean, we have right now we have 1 minute remaining until the deadline, but we always hear about the reports that come out after the deadline and trickle in later. it doesn't seem like there's any news on Rodriguez at all, and I'd be shocked if he doesn't get traded.
I don't think he gets traded just because of I think the most buzz we would have gotten out of him is
the Dodgers.
The Dodgers, yeah.
And that deal, for those of you that don't know, fell through. The Dodgers apparently had a deal in place for Eduardo Rodriguez, but it ended up not working out because Rodriguez denied the Dodgers given his trade clause.
Oh, I have one from per Jason Stark of The Athletic and MLB Network. The Phillies are closing in on a deal with the Pittsburgh Pirates for left-handed pitcher Bailey Falter and right-handed hitting infielder Rodolfo Castro.
So Castro headed to the Phillies, and Bailey Falter has struggled badly this year for the Phillies. That's not surprising.
Yeah, Bailey Falter for Castro. Excuse me.
Yeah, so that's not surprising that they would move on from him. And we've got more coming in by the minute, and we've hit the trade deadline. That's it. It's 6:00 Eastern time, and the trade deadline is here. The Yankees are the team with the most recent move, recent big name move at least.
They made a trade, but they made a trade since July 1st. How about that? News.
There you go. They made a trade before the deadline ended.
Oh my goodness.
I wonder if the Mets got anything for Narvaez or anybody like that, but they traded off who they needed to trade off for sure. So if you're a Mets fan, you're satisfied there. The Dodgers, unless we hear about something, didn't do anything today, which would be shocking.
Just by the way, I don't know how much you want to trust this because it is Nightingale, but he said that Dylan Cease has not been traded.
Yep. So Nightingale is definitely not your guy you want to go to for sure, but he also was on some things earlier today, so maybe he knows. Nightingale says Cease is in Chicago. Yeah, I don't think they'll trade him. I don't think that they were ever really going to trade him.
Let's just see if there's any other moves. Nothing new that I've seen.
I'm sure we'll hear a little bit more as we stay on, and we'll stay on till we'll call it quits at probably around maybe 6:15, 6:20, in case we don't hear any more news. From what we have, though, overall, kind of a boring trade deadline compared to last season, right? There wasn't that much motion. Obviously, the Mets were the big headliner. They traded away Verlander and Scherzer, and being a New York team, they accepted their fate of being sellers this year. And that's not something, hey, be self-respectable and accept your fate. I like that strategy. Go out and get the best prospects that you can. And you didn't trade him to the Braves or the Padres. So there you go.
I'm waiting for like Atlanta or someone of a big
Where have
market
they
to come in and just have that. Like they traded for what? But again, there's not just a lot of that on the market right now, at least. But
okay, so the Mariners have DFA'd Colton Wong. That is something that we have now.
okay.
From Chris Cotillo. And so they are DFAing him, and the Red Sox are showing interest. I can see that being a potential connection there. And the deadline is here. It is 6:04. Still waiting on some more stuff. So who do you think is the biggest loser today from what we have, from the information we have now?
Let me just pull up the teams. Biggest loser? Um, I'm not gonna say my own team because that's homerish, even though they're probably in contention for it. Are you just talking about the entire deadline and not just today?
Yeah, I mean the entire deadline.
Okay. Um,
I could start if you want.
no, I was gonna say like just one team that I'm thinking of is probably the Padres.
Yeah, that's what I had in mind too.
Because again, I think they, as we talked about before, they could have been buyers, they could have been sellers, but it looks like just the one move that they made was for 57,000-year-old Rich Hill plus G-Man Choi.
So we're not moving the needle here from the Padres' perspective. And
No.
if you're gonna be a buyer, just be a buyer, or at least make trades if you're gonna be both, because they didn't really do much. Maybe they're confident in what their team is right now. And hey, I mean, they have every right to be confident, but their team is 0-10 in extra innings this year, and they're 6-18 in one-run games, like we were saying earlier. So, okay, I have another just groundbreaking trade here. The Los Angeles Angels have acquired Dominic Leone from the New York Mets. So the sell-off is continuing to come in with Leone heading to the Angels.
Okay.
Not much to react on that one. 4.4 ERA guy, 1.24 WHIP. Actually been pretty productive for the Mets as a Mets fan watching this season. Leone's only 31, but he was DFA'd by the Giants earlier in the season. So for the Mets to pick up a guy that was DFA'd and then immediately trade him later in the year, not a bad move. Ken Rosenthal
looks
is
like for Dan Hayes, the Twins did not make any moves. So if you want to add them to the collection of losers, you more than willing to. Because again, this is team that was in first place.
They're the biggest loser, in my opinion, today. For them to not go get a pitcher, or for them to not go get a bat, is pretty unacceptable. They have a decent farm system, enough to where they could have went and got another bat for that lineup. And Ken Rosenthal is reporting that Eduardo Rodriguez did not get traded.
Mm-hmm. Just another loser on the day because I thought they could have probably done more is Boston.
Yeah, that's a good one for sure.
And I think it's just the fact that the matter of like, it's not that they didn't sell, it's not that they didn't buy, it's just that they really didn't do anything. And that's the worst possible outcome for a good portion of these teams. But like, they really didn't make.
Unless you're the Atlanta Braves, you have to make trades at the deadline if you want to make your team better.
And even the Braves did something. They added to their bullpen.
Yeah, they added bullpen pieces. And if you ever seen a World Series champion that went out and didn't do anything at the trade deadline, like, no, that just doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
Teams that are winning now are teams that are constantly moving and constantly making trades and upgrading their team.
Right.
And another guy that didn't get moved was Brooks Raley. We thought when Justin Verlander was traded that it would be Raley that would get moved, but it looks like he'll stick around a little bit more. Jose Quintana didn't get traded. Teoscar Hernandez, it looks like, has not gotten traded. So there's a lot of nothing.
This is what this deadline's been. It's just been nothing. Outside of the Scherzer, Verlander moves.
Outside of the Mets.
Yeah.
Nobody else is doing anything.
The Mets. At least I'm looking at it right now. Per John Heyman, David Bednar, and Mitch Keller were not traded. So it's just like, it was just a whole lot of just a whole lot of nothing. Like it was the smallest moves, like except the biggest move of the day, Kenyon Middleton. But other than that, a lot of small moves. No, I'm just kidding. But it's just been like a lot of nothing. Like the Giolito one was probably one of the bigger ones that happened, and that happened days ago. It felt like weeks ago.
Another team that did nothing, the Tampa Bay Rays. Where have they been? They're always trading people in this.
Other than Savali.
Yeah, Savali. So that was the move that they made that really, I guess, will push the needle. Maybe. Bednar. Yeah. Bednar didn't get traded from the Pirates. Some of these sellers are missing out here.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Pirates should have treated David Bednar.
Like when it always comes to these trade deadlines in any sport, whether it's like, whether they're on an expiring contract or they have a year left to control, it just always makes me curious. Like, I'm sure, especially with guys who have an extra year left, like they want to wait until the offseason to where it's a more movable contract. But it's just like the value for some of these guys just might not be higher. Like, I don't know, like, yeah, it feels like Mitch Keller's just now entering his prime, but like, is the value going to be higher right now for like the team that he's surrounded by to move him and at least get something back? I mean, the Pirates maybe aren't like the worst team in baseball like they have been, but they're still not a good team and they're still in position to sell.
They should be selling.
Right. Oh, here's one. Here's a late breaking one.
Okay.
The Marlins are acquiring Josh Bell from the San Diego Padres for Garrett Cooper.
Gary Cooper.
Yep.
Wow. All right. The Marlins.
That was
can you say that one
Ken
more
Rosenthal.
time?
Yeah, the Marlins are acquiring Josh Bell from the San Diego Padres for Garrett Cooper.
Josh Bell. You mean for the Guardians? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, from the Guardians. Well, I mean, yeah,
So
you're right.
So you said for Jeff Passan's reporting something completely different. He says that the Miami Marlins are acquiring Josh Bell from the Guardians, but for Gene Segura and for Khalil Watson.
Uh-oh.
So we've got some conflicting reports here.
Yeah, it looks like I guess I read the tweet wrong. I forgot. But also Rosenthal said that he was still with the Padres.
Yeah, so that's a move right there. That's
conflicting reports.
Yeah, conflicting reports for sure. And Josh Bell is another bat for the Marlins. We can tally up the Marlins as winners of this deadline, by the way. They have significantly improved their team. And for the Guardians,
if they traded, I don't know, again, this is conflicting, but like if they traded Garrett Cooper.
Yeah, right. If they traded Garrett Cooper, that doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, I agree.
So we'll just have to wait and see on Miami. But there is something that I did want to mention that shocked me, and I was just reading in passing right before we ended up with the Marlins deal, was that the Mets got back the number 9 prospect in the Angels system, Jeremiah Jackson, for Dominic Leone. So the Mets traded Dominic Leone and got the Angels' number 9 prospect back. That's a pretty good haul.
That is a good haul. But also just something you can take into consideration. It's not going to ruin the trade or anything, but just remember how bad that farm system the Angels have. So
yeah, oh yeah,
but
their farm system's awful.
Yeah, but like, I still think that's a good move. So
yeah, I mean,
or a good return at least.
Leone was nothing.
Right.
So
what exact, like, is this something that I also want to see in baseball? I don't know if it's ever going to be like a thing. I just want to see more 3-team trades.
Yeah.
Let's get some chaos in there, but I don't actually.
Speaking of three-team trades.
Yeah, speaking of 3-team trades, we might have one.
Robert Murray is now reporting that the Padres are the team that got Garrett Cooper from the Marlins.
Imagine being Garrett Cooper, like looking at his notifications right now if he's not hearing from his agent.
Yeah, you've nothing
like
to
he's
say.
Just like, all right, am I going? Where am I going?
Wow.
So Garrett Cooper is on the move. He's just not going on the move to the Guardians. But he's going to the Padres.
Yeah, it seems like it. That's an interesting one. 3-team trade right there at the buzzer.
It was probably just agents sending like, here's the trade, and they were just trying to get it out as quickly as possible, or agents, front office members, whoever it was. But
Right.
there was some sort of miscommunication on who was traded to where.
Yeah, and the reporters, you can almost never trust the reporters as much as we do get a lot of our information, a lot of our news from them. A lot of them are just wrong a lot of the times, or they'll report things too early and try and be the first guy to be on it. So everything has to be taken with a grain of salt. So
Yeah, man, Arson Judge, bro,
yeah, Arson Judge to the Giants.
best player ever.
That shook the world for about 7 minutes when that happened.
It made me want to roll in a ball and off a bridge. But
Yeah.
good thing it didn't happen.
I'm surprised about the Red Sox. I'm really surprised that they didn't end up doing anything.
I mean, they were a little bit more active last year, right? They got Tommy Pham. But it's still, the last couple of years, they haven't really done much in terms of trades. At least up at the deadline. I mean, again, they traded Kike away and got a couple arms for him when he wasn't playing well. I mean, they got $1.25 on the dollar, but yeah, this deadline stunk in terms of just, it's not even just them. It's like them, the Yankees. I mean, we could point to a number of these teams, the Padres, the Diamondbacks. There's just a bunch of these teams that we can look at in the end that just didn't really do anything. Like, there's only a couple winners. Like, I would lump the Mets into a winner just because of the returns they got. But like teams like Houston, teams like the Rangers, like those were the teams that were like the winners, and there wasn't really many winners. Again, there's smaller moves that could impact teams later in the season. That proved to be more consequential than we're giving credit for right now on the surface. But
right,
just right now, if we're looking at these trades, there wasn't really a lot of like winner type moves from really just around the entire league. Again, like the Mets, outside of the Mets, like
right,
or outside of the teams involved in trades with the Mets, like the Marlins, who got David Robertson.
So the Mets and the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah, the White Sox. Yeah.
Who else has been a seller? I mean, so the Cardinals. You got the Cardinals, the White Sox, and the Mets. Those have really been the three sellers this deadline. Kind of crazy. The Royals have sold off a few pieces.
The Mariners sold off Seawald, but
yeah, yep. That's one to note for sure. They got a good haul back on that one too.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Dodgers have made a move now. That's just coming in now from Mark Feinsand, is that the Dodgers have acquired Ryan Yarbrough from the Royals. So another relief arm for them.
I mean, he was a starter for a decent amount of time in Tampa, right? Like
he'll be reliable.
He would be used as like a 4 or 5 inning, like not even like an opener, but someone
inning
who
feeder.
Could give you some length. The length in terms of like if you don't have a starting pitcher, I can give you again 4 decent innings. Length in that respect, so you're not having to use like a bullpen day, but. The Red Sox did do something. They acquired Luis Urias from the Brewers.
Okay. Another bat. That's interesting. It's definitely an interesting move there.
I still don't think that's much, but I guess it's something.
So I think we have a final terms now on this Miami, Cleveland, San Diego trade. although I don't see Garrett Cooper in here anywhere. For right now, it seems like definitely Gene Segura is heading to Cleveland. Josh Bell is headed to Miami. And Khalil Watson, who's a prospect, is also headed to Cleveland.
Garrett Cooper.
I'm not seeing anything on Cooper in that trade at all. At least from passing.
Got it. Interesting.
6:20, and we still got trades trickling in here. This is always what happens at this deadline.
Luis Urias, the biggest name trade on the deadline.
Not a bad trade, Boston. Decent bat. Depends on what, obviously, they gave up.
It's probably just like, again, a mid to lower level prospect. It's probably not much, but
yeah, the Garrett Cooper thing is kind of intriguing here because I'm hearing all sorts of reports now. Heyman just tweeted that he's going to San Diego. Okay, yeah. So Garrett Cooper. Craig Mish says that Garrett Cooper and Sean Reynolds are going to San Diego for Ryan Weathers. So the Marlins just got another bullpen arm, but
Okay.
they gave up Garrett Cooper for it.
okay.
So there's the Padres making some noise. I don't think that Garrett Cooper is an awful option, but didn't you just trade for G-Man Choi earlier today? So you're getting two middle of the line first baseman?
Yep.
Oh, wow. Luis Urias has been awful this season, hasn't he?
Yeah.
55 at bats, 145 average. Oof.
What does Heim see in him?
See something.
Heim seems something. He sees something. Any more of these deals going to trickle in before we get off?
I think that that's probably going to be one of the last ones. It doesn't seem like there was anything else coming in, but earlier this year, if you had told me that this would be the trade deadline, that the Mets would sell off everything and the Yankees would be doing nothing, surprising.
When they're in last place in their own division.
Steve Cohen is on his way to Kansas City to visit with the club. And rumor has it that he's going to come in the sixth inning and for relief pitching tonight for the Mets. Everybody is gone. Nobody can pitch anymore.
Yeah, he's their third rotation guy.
Yeah.
Give him 5 solid innings, 2 runs, 80 pitches.
I like how when players are not in the lineup that everybody starts to freak out, but it always never ends up being anything. Like Harrison Bader, not in the lineup today.
Listen, man, it's a scheduled off day. You know how the Yankees operate. They have scheduled off days for players. That's just how it is, I guess.
I like it.
Oh, Padres acquire closer Scott Barlow from the Royals.
Very late, Padres.
According to Mark Feinsand.
All right, let's talk about this one, and then I think we're good to sign off for the day. So Scott Barlow, that's a good move for the Padres, and that I think that brings them out of loser status, right? Because they needed to go get another bullpen arm, and getting a guy like Barlow is big. Scott Barlow has been for the last period of time for the Royals a guy that's been a good player on a really horrendous team. So I'm interested to see what they gave up for Kansas City and why now. we're doing this? How did this just come in? It's crazy to see when they come in this late, because we're 25 minutes after the trade deadline here.
Right.
So Barlow this year has actually taken a step back, but he's been really solid over the last couple of years. 1.55 WHIP, 38 innings, 5.35 ERA.
And he's a good, he's not going to be Josh Hader, but he can be a good guy to bridge that gap a little bit.
Bridge man, for sure.
He'll be like a good setup man, 7th, 8th inning. Just lengthens the bullpen a little bit.
For sure. I think so as well. Good move for them. So we'll have plenty more coverage of the MLB trade deadline coming up in our articles and in the daily shows in the future. But this was fun. MLB trade deadline special. We were on air for about 2.5 hours, and we grabbed some good breaking news when we were on air. Nothing too big, really, when we were on air. Me and Michael Lorenzen, that was a little bit before we got on air. Padres acquire Scott Barlow. The Yankees acquire Kenyon Middleton.
Biggest move of the day.
The Yankees are, who knows what they're up to.
Undefined, unquestionable winners. No.
And the Orioles trade for Jack Flaherty. That was another move that may have pushed the needle one way or the other. For come playoff time, the Orioles definitely needed somebody. And it seems like that they got their guy. Garrett Cooper will head to San Diego. Ryan Weathers will go to Miami. And we've got a lot more to break down.
Eduardo Rodriguez not going to the Dodgers.
The lack of trades will definitely be something that we talk about in the future. Mitch Keller. Neither of the MVP candidates from the Cardinals got moved. Goldschmidt or Arenado. No Yankee position players.
I think that's comfortably the loser of the deadline was the fans.
There you go.
The fans.
I think you're right.
The fans, the parody. I mean, again, outside of a couple moves that came here and there, it was just a lot of it was a lot of
rumors.
It was a lot of nothing. I don't want to say nothing, but it was just a lot of very little minor moves. And it's just the deadline's supposed to be the fun time of year. This almost felt like the NFL trade deadline, which the NFL trade deadline is usually not a lot at all. I can't tell you. I mean, there's probably a couple here and there, but I can't tell you a recent NFL trade deadline that was groundbreakingly historic. And so this one was disappointing.
Definitely. Compared to last year as well, when we got the news on Juan Soto, it was oh my gosh, that was insane last year. And for no Dylan Cease, no Eduardo Rodriguez, I mean, he was a lock. Bednar, Mitch Keller, none of those guys. So with that, I think we're good to probably sign off.
All righty. Thank you all for watching. Obviously, like and subscribe. Go to vendettasportsmedia.com. Check us out on Newsbreak. We're officially on Newsbreak. The outreach for our website has been bigger than ever. It's only going to continue growing. So please check all that stuff out. Check out our MLB channel on the site. Check out our other channels. I know we do a lot of good UFC content. James has been pumping that out lately. Obviously, the NBA season is in a little bit of a dead point, but we're still putting out news there. News, rumors, whatever you like. I know we're going to be having our next power rankings for Major League Baseball coming out soon, so please go check that out on the site. But thank you all for watching. And again, like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for the Daily Show.